Ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, children of all ages, the Rob Brown Show is on your radio. This is the Fan Upstate. Welcome back, y'all. Great to have you. Welcome in. How y'all doing? It is good to be with you. I am Rob Brown. Directly across from me on the other side of the glass, both. Well, no, actually, only metaphorically. There's no more glass here. In charge of the radio broadcast today and every day. If you like it, he gets all the credit. If you hate it, he takes all the blame. The great one, Lonzo Wright. So, hello, Zoe.
I'd appreciate it if you don't violate my space again by sticking your hand over the board.
Well, I was going to mime the glass, but then I realized that's just as far as I can reach.
I'm more concerned you're going to hit that easel, and that easel is going to hit your drink, and the drink is going to go all over the board. That's really what I'm concerned about.
I haven't done that yet.
Thank you for moving that. You might have moved it into the perfect position for it to go. I mean, I don't know.
Hey, I have a question for you.
Uh-oh.
If you got an invitation to an event that was prestigious, but that you absolutely know you were not supposed to be invited to, how do you handle that situation?
What political event did you get invited to?
Nope, not me, nor is it a political event.
Okay, all right. I think it depends. I mean, this is hard to do without detail. If I get invited to the opening of the new Playboy Club, not going. Okay. If I accidentally get invited to the DNC, probably going to go just because it would be fun for me to just listen.
Okay, so the answer is you'd absolutely go. Depending on the event, you'd absolutely go.
Depending on the event, because I also got to think of, I've got two stations I could represent. So how could I spin it? Not necessarily spin it, but use it in a way where it becomes show prep.
Here's why I asked this. I found this story yesterday afternoon. You guys know I'm a golf guy. I love a little golf. I play poorly, but I play. And I watch tournaments throughout the year. Primarily the big ones, but I watch different ones. Obviously, the crown jewel of the golfings is the Masters tournament, which takes place at the end of April every year. Augusta National Golf Course is the host of the Masters tournament. Augusta National Golf Course is a place you only play in if you know somebody who knows somebody, right? You got to know a member and they got to sponsor you. And then I think you have to get two other members to approve of you, et cetera, et cetera. It's a thing. And if
sounds like a secret society,
it
or
kind
something.
of is.
Yeah.
It kind of is.
Skull and Crossbones.
It's a terrible secret who's in it, but it's a club of elitists, shall we just say that? Elite golfers and elite members of society.
You'll never get invited now.
Correct. Well, there is a golfer on tour by the name of Scott Stallings. Scott Stallings qualified to make the Masters, to play in the Masters. Scott Stallings has been looking for his invitation. When you get invited to play the Masters, because even if you qualify, you have to be invited. And you get a very formal invite package, right? You get a very formal invite package. And there's a little mock of the scorebook in it. And there's a really nice calligraphy written out invitation by name to you, etc.
Calligraphy, what is that?
Fancy writing. Is that their fancy writing?
I was just asking for the people in Pickens County.
Fair enough. Well, Scott Stallings has been waiting on his Masters invitation. It had not arrived. It should have. It should already be there. That is because the Masters sent it to Scott Stallings, a different one, a guy who lives in a condo in Florida somewhere, and a guy who is a casual recreational golfer at best. And Scott Stallings, the condo guy, receives Scott Stallings, the professional golfer's invite. He went to his wife. He's like, pretty sure I'm not supposed to have this. And the wife convinced him to reach out to the Masters and say, y'all sent me an invite by mistake. He quite literally slid into the DMs of the Masters on their social media accounts and said, hey, my name is Scott Stallings, but I am not the Scott Stallings you're looking for. You sent me an invite to play in the Masters by mistake. He then sent a photo of the invite and said, I'm not kidding. Reach out to me. I want to get it to the actual Scott Stallings. Now, Rob Brown likes to have a little fun in his life. I'm not a big prank guy. Mainly because I'm not good at them. I'll do them, but I'm not great at them. That being said.
Yeah, I've been waiting for you to do the first one on me.
Not a chance.
Because then it's on.
Not a chance. However, there have been a few times where I have been invited to something that I absolutely had no business being invited to. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to that. Going to that. I'm going to tell you right now.
You could not go incognito, though. You're going to let
the Masters?
To anything. You're going to let everybody know that you're there.
No,
and they're going to go, why is he here?
Here's the thing. Like, if you invite me to, I got invited a number of years. I'll tell you a quick story to kind of play it out, right? A number of years ago when I was living down in Pensacola, I'm not when I'm on the air, I'm not a fan of any particular college football team except whichever one is going to make me more money, right? When I was down at the old radio station in Destin, we were the broadcast outlet for Florida State football in the Florida Panhandle. We carried FSU basketball and football. So FSU being good made me money. Therefore, I was at the time an FSU fan. Now, I'm a Clemson, South Carolina, and Furman fan because when they're good, I make money. So anyway, I got an invite that I was not supposed to get to come to the Florida Gator Booster Club party that they were doing for the Florida State versus Florida football game.
Were you working with Mark Ryan at the time?
I was not.
Okay, it's a different place.
This would have been more hilarious if I was.
Yeah, it would have. Hey, Mark, look what I got.
Right. I got the invite. I don't know. I got the impression that invitation was supposed to be sent to a select group of people, but they accidentally sent it to their media mailing list. But I got the invite. It was an invite-only party, and I freaking went. Right? I showed up. I did not troll. I didn't show up in like FSU gear. I showed up in station gear. It was at Seville Quarter in Pensacola, Florida. Some of y'all probably been down there. And I walked in the station get up, and you could very quickly tell that the president of the club knew exactly who I was and knew I probably wasn't supposed to be there. So I just kind of hung out in the shadows and waited, and eventually he came up and was like, Mr. Brown, this is an invite-only party. So I pulled out the invite. I'm like, yeah, no, I got one. Here's my invite. It's got my name right there on it. My name, my email, everything. And I think he realized at that moment, like, oh, man, I can't kick him out. That's a bad look, right? It's a bad look. Anyway, after about 30 minutes of schmoozing with the guests at this party, one of them asked me to do the invite or the welcome to their keynote speaker for the evening, the then governor of Florida, Rick Scott, who got up on stage and talked. See, then Rick thought that he was supposed to bring me back out to talk about the game with him. So then Rick Scott hypes the crowd and brings me back out. And I just sat on a stage and talked football with the governor of the state of Florida for about 10 minutes before kickoff to the game. That was not scripted or scheduled, but it was incredible. All right. If I get an invitation in the mail from the Masters to come play in that tournament on April 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, you know who I'm telling that I received that invitation? Nobody. I ain't telling Lonzo. I ain't telling the boss. I ain't telling Captain America Chris Evans down the hall. I ain't telling Courtney. I ain't telling my mom. I ain't telling my little brother. I ain't telling a soul. You know what I am doing? I'm going down to Golf Galaxy. I'm spending about $5,000 to rack up on the best equipment that I can get. I'm showing up April 6th to the gate of the Masters, and I'm going, here's my invitation. I want in. And if they go, you weren't supposed to be invited, I don't care if I was supposed to or not. Here's my invitation. It's got my name. It's got my address. You invited me. I bought the gear. I'm playing. And I'm going to go out and shoot 160 on the Masters. I'm going to go miss the cut as an amateur, and I'm going to have the story of a lifetime. This dude reached out to the Masters and went, hey, y'all sent me an invitation by mistake. No, don't you do that.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, he's probably looking at the fact that this other guy is pretty good and earned his spot, and now you're taking his spot after that guy went out there. And it's kind of messed up. So you getting to go is kind of cool because you got an invitation you weren't supposed to get, but you're costing somebody else. So you're going at the expense of the other guy. I mean, that's kind of, it's a heel move. It is.
First off, I suspect, as Scott Stallings is on the invite list, that after a hot minute, Scott Stallings is the golfer. Scott Stallings is going to call Augusta and go, "Hey guys, I qualified. I'm supposed to be invited, but I didn't get my invite. Are we good?" And they're going to go, "Yeah, we sent it. Don't know where it is. We'll pop another one in the mail.
Right.
Tomorrow."
But if they do that, then both Scott Stallings are showing up.
And they don't know where that first invite went because nobody claimed it. Right. Nobody's claimed that invite. Nobody knows where it is. Nobody knows who has it. I'm going to show up on Masters Thursday at 5 a.m. to the front gate of Augusta with my bag, with my invitation, and with a, hey, let me on the course. You invited me. You sent me the invite. I have put the money into getting ready for this tournament. I want to compete. And then I'm going to go shoot 150. Go down as the worst first round score ever at the Masters.
How did your golf score improve from like 5 minutes ago when it was 160? Now it's 150. You're just getting better as we go.
Played the course in my mind a couple of times.
Okay. You know? Familiarity. I get it.
Setting up amen corner. I think, I think the key is to everybody goes for it on 12. I think the key is to lay up on 12 and take the 2, right? You don't want to, everybody overshoots it, hoping for glory. You end up on the back of that bunker, that big hill. Now you got to come back against the grain and up a hill. I'm laying up short and rolling it up there.
Stay away from the pimento cheese sandwiches. That just sounds gross.
Oh, dude, are you kidding me? First off, pimento cheese is delightful.
I mean, it's all right if it's on something else, but when it's by itself, I mean, it's one of those things that I like this because everyone says the rich people like it, but you don't really like it. I'm guessing you can tell me. I'm guessing caviar probably is nasty.
I've only had caviar once.
I knew it's 1%ers. It's like probably was, instead of baby food, he had caviar.
Whatever, boomer. So anyway, suffice to say,
I'm not a boomer.
And I'm not a 1%er, but doesn't stop you. Suffice to say, I get the invite to play the Masters. I'm not telling my wife. I'm not telling the little bro. I'm not telling the madre. I'm not telling the dog. I'm going.
So it wouldn't eat
April
at you.
6th, I'm gone.
It wouldn't eat at you that you know that you're taking someone else's spot.
Oh, he's still
That
gonna
would
get his
not
spot.
that would not eat at you to the point where you would have no guilt about that at all.
Here's the reality. You and I both know if this happens, I'm showing up and I'm getting my ass thrown off of the golf course. They're going to be like, no, rando, get gone. The real Scott Stallings, please stand up.
You're going to be wearing a wire and a secret camera so you can capture it all.
100%. 100%. I am trying to go, because here's the thing. What maybe, just maybe, it won't happen because the folks at Augusta, as much as I love that course and as much as I love that event, all have sticks up the rectum.
Yeah, it
All
would
of
be
them.
really cool if they said, you know what, we sent you
You're
the
right.
invite by accident. Come on and play.
That's what I'm going for.
Come on. And you know what you do? You pair them up with the other
Yep.
Scott Stallings.
Yep. I am going for, you get the one tournament organizer who's like, this would probably be pretty good for social media, right? It'd be pretty good for social media if we throw this idiot out there with his no name, no caddy. We stick him out there. He's got to carry his own bag. We go watch him shoot 170 and get smoked. But we follow him around with a film crew and make a documentary over Rob Brown, the clown who got smoked by Augusta. I would 100% try it. Scott Stallings was like, hey, Masters, you sent me no, don't do that, Scott. Just go.
Why couldn't he have an upstanding voice? Why do you have to be, you make him sound dumb?
Because he used the 100 emoji in his response to the Masters. Here's what he wrote to the Masters in the DM. I received a FedEx today from the Masters inviting me to play in the Masters tournament April 6th through 9, 2023. I'm 100 emoji. Sure, this is not for me. I play, but wow, nowhere near your level. It is a very nice package complete with everything needed to attend. I think we have some confusion because of our names, our wives' names, and geographical location. So I guess his name is Scott Stallings, and his wife is Jennifer. The actual Scott Stallings' wife is also named Jennifer.
So
But did the
weird.
Masters use a phone book to find Scott Stallings' address? Did they go get the yellow pages to find it?
Those still exist, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I get one every year.
Yeah. Well, they
Infuriates
exist online too. Really?
Infuriates me. Why are we still making phone books?
Well-
No one has used a phone book since 1990 freaking 7. Why are we wasting forest worth of trees on a book that 95% of houses pick up and move from the front porch to the trash can?
Extreme Rules matches and short people.
And those guys who motivate high schoolers by ripping phone books in half, bro.
You're making fun of that. Have you ever tried to do it?
No, because I can't. I'm just saying, once a year, every
You
year.
couldn't even do the white pages or the smaller ones that rural areas get.
I can't
Me-
rip a People magazine in half.
There we go. Do those still exist? I don't think they
Yes.
do. Do they?
You know what the difference is? They don't make 10 million of them and throw them on your doorstep. Save the middleman, phone book company, print the book, and then just throw it in your own trash
Who
can.
sounds like an old man now? Don't be putting their stupid phone book on my front
Lonzo,
lawn.
who's using phone books? Old man.
Nobody that I know
Correct.
of. Yeah,
Old people. That's it. It's quite the opposite.
I only used them for crank calls back in the day. Let's find a funny name and have some,
Why are we still making phone books? Stop making phone books. Nobody wants them.
You know
Nobody
what?
needs them.
You know what? You don't want those people who make phone books to have jobs.
Here we go again.
Commie.
Here we go again. Here we go again.
You don't like the little man. The guy is out there. He's busting it every day, and the best he could do is making phone books, and you don't want him to have a job anymore.
Anyway, let's take a break. We come back here in just a minute. Conversation that has been raging on for the past couple of days. It is suspected that later today, Spencer Rattler could shed some light on his future. Does he stay with the Gamecocks? Does he make his way to the National Football League? Anybody who claims they know is lying. But I do have some thoughts on whether he should or should not. Should he stay or should he go now? I'll answer when we come back on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate.
You can't shine a halo, Kevin, because they're ethereal. Yeah.
My man James just tweeted this. Rob Brown when he shows up at the Masters. Correct.
Rob secretly wants to look like that when he gets older. I mean,
what do you mean wants to look? I already look like that.
No,
my beard's just black instead of white.
No, you don't. You don't look that way. And you would never dress that way. It doesn't match. That does not match. You are not going to wear something that doesn't match.
I would wear those pants, but with a shirt.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
I have a neon pink shirt.
There you go. Tinky Winky, in effect. I don't know about you, but it's like a new year and it's like fights all over the place. My friends and I we did do that sort of, but not the lame refrigerators running thing. Until what stopped us is we called an older lady and started having conversations with her, and she was really nice. And turns out she was on my paper route, didn't know. And she would always give us nice little gifts for Christmas and stuff. It was really cool. It wasn't cool that we prank called her, but she won us over, us hooligans. And unfortunately, I don't remember her name. It was like in 1984 or 3 or something like that. No, you can't do that.
That's our gig.
Yeah.
Don't step on my gimmick.
You're not allowed, man.
Don't.
You're just college guys. You can't talk NFL.
Rumors out of Columbia are that Spencer Rattler will be shining some light on his future sometime in the next couple of days. One more ride with Shane and the boys, or does he go ahead and enter himself into the 2023 NFL draft? And there's some good arguments for both, right? On one hand, Spencer Rattler is coming off of 3 very good games. Tennessee, Clemson, had a good day. Not a great day, but a good day against Notre Dame. His stock right now is as high as it has ever been. Flip side of that argument, Spencer Rattler is just coming into form. One more year of doing that with the Gamecocks, and Spencer Rattler could raise his stock. I have seen projections of Spencer Rattler's draft stock anywhere from a late first to early second round guy to as low as a 6th or 7th round draft pick. That is to say, nobody knows. Nobody knows where the valuation of Spencer Rattler in the NFL would be. I am going to simply say this because I don't think, unless you know Spence, and I have not come across anybody who claims to know Spence that is making a "this is what he's thinking right now" statement on his behalf. Not even a sources say. And y'all know how much people around here love to lean on sources to report stuff. I have not seen anything about it. I'm just going to say this. Spencer Rattler would do well for one more year with the Gamecocks. Okay? Spence had a couple of dirt balls. Spence had a couple of spots where the throws he was making just weren't NFL caliber yet. Now, against Tennessee, dude was in fuego. Against Clemson, he had a very, very good game. 2 or 3 games does not an NFL quarterback make. But it's a gamble. It is a bet on himself one way or the other. If he decides to go to the league because the dude was playing exceptionally well in the last few games of the season, he has taken the gamble that the highest his stock has been since he was a recruit to Oklahoma will pump him up a couple of rounds and make him a few more bucks. On the flip side, if he decides to stay, he's taking the gamble that the momentum that he built against Tennessee, Clemson, and Notre Dame will carry over to next year. The numbers will remain similar, and that will bump him up to the first-round draft pick that a lot of people were labeling him as before he ever played his first snap at the University of Oklahoma, or at least since the end of his freshman year when we all kind of thought he was going to be the dude. Then he wasn't, lost his job to Caleb Williams, ended up transferring out, now with Shane Beamer at South Carolina. The point of all of this is the dude's taking a gamble either way, right? If he decides to bet on himself and go to the league, I got no problem with that. Understanding that it's a risk. Spencer Rattler he will get drafted.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I mean, 3 games. I mean, he did look good in those 3 games, but you got to look at all the things leading up to those 3 games. I'm glad he looked good in those, but an entire season of that, if you build that momentum and you do it for another year, then you got a shot of maybe being back in the Heisman race. You got a shot of doing a lot of things, taking South Carolina to the next level, maybe competing in the East. And also, you have more eyes on you because there are less big-name quarterbacks coming back next year, but there are a ton of them coming out in the draft. And is it worth it? I know what you're saying about a gamble, but if you gamble on coming back to college, taking some NIL money, making yourself look better for the next draft, you can get back into that first round because he's not going to be there. Where does he get drafted right now, in your opinion? If he gets drafted, what round?
5th.
Is that worth it? Chances are you might be able to make NIL money equal to 5th round money.
No, that's a lot of money. There ain't nobody that's not a Heisman finalist is making that much money.
He could be next year.
Might be. You're absolutely right. But I think that's why this conversation is so interesting. Everybody's got their opinion on what Spencer Rattler should do, myself included. I think you come back for one more year. I think you ride one more time. You got a top 16 recruiting class coming in. You're going to have a new offensive coordinator next year. And hopefully, if Shano's speculation is correct, it's one who's going to run a pro-style offense, which is what you need to train in to get ready for the league, right? I think one more year would do him well. But it's a gamble either way. Because let's say, hypothetically, not even hypothetically, there's 3 things that can happen. There's 3 things that can happen. Either he comes back, the momentum from the last 3 games of the season carries over, and Spencer Rattler ends next year as a first-round draft pick. The second option is he does what he did this year. He has an okay season. He has a couple of really good games, a couple of not-so-great games, and he stays in the same spot, which means he takes 1 year less pay from the NFL. Or C, he comes back and he stinks because the new OC ain't the guy. And the play calling doesn't get better. And he just stinks up the field. And then he maybe loses draft stock going into the year after. Because they go, you had 3 good games at the end of 22, but then you stunk up the field in 2023. Now we're less inclined to touch you. 2 of those things are bad. If Spencer Rattler comes back and has the exact same type of year, it's bad because A, he's a year older. B, he spends a year less in the NFL making NFL money for himself.
We don't know what the noise is around him. The people that his circle, what they're telling him. If you were a member of his circle right now, would you tell him to come back to school? Because I know I definitely would, because I don't think his body of work is consistent enough to get drafted where he probably believes he should be. And if he has a better year next year than he had this year, he's going to up his stock.
If he has a better year than he had this year, he will up his stock. Absolutely. The gamble is, does he? Can he? Right?
Well, the gamble is if he goes to the draft and doesn't get drafted. I know you say 5th round, but what if he doesn't get drafted?
Undrafted free agent? Don't know. And this is why, for the record, I have zero problem if there was an instituted rule that says if you go to the draft and you don't get drafted, you can come back.
See, I'd be okay. I'd be okay with that too.
Yep, no problem with that. But if Dow Loggins comes over as the new OC, who does run a pro style offense, if he shows up, runs the pro style, gets Spence ready in a pro style, and helps him up the stock, that's good. If he comes back and he doesn't, that's going to cost Spencer Rattler some money. I don't want that for him. I hope he does well. I hope he gets paid, right? But it's a gamble either way. We can all speculate. We can all say, this is what I think he should do, and here's why I think he should do it. But at the end of the day, there's absolutely positives and negatives both ways. I know that I am supposed to pick a side and say the other side is wrong and dumb for the sake of debate, but I'm not going to do it because it's not. Coming back to South Carolina for another year makes a lot of sense for Spencer Rattler. But going to the league now, if he is going to get, because remember, he'll get told, you'll get a draft analysis. We suspect you would be drafted around the 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds, whatever round it might be. I suspect Spence is going to get a draft analysis that says you're a 4th to 5th rounder. Maybe 6th, maybe 3rd, but 4th to 5th rounder. And Spence is going to know around how much money he'll make if he gets drafted into that spot, and then he gets to make the decision. I think speculating on what that decision will be is premature. Do I hope he comes back? Yes. Both for South Carolina and for Spencer Rattler. But I'm also saying this. If you're a Carolina fan, don't tweet at that kid what he should do, right? Don't tweet at him what he should do. Just let him make his decision. Let's take a break. When we come back here in just a minute, we will be joined by the voice of the Panther Nation podcast. My guy, Rashad Beard's in the house. We'll talk a little Panther football, and I'm sure there won't be any smack talk thrown back and forth between the two of us today. Coming up in the next hour, 10:30, Emily Adams of the Greenville News will join us. And then at 11:20, it's Thursday. And you know what that means. Fight Club. We'll talk some wrestling, MMA, and boxing with the great one Lonzo at 11:20. All coming up on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate.
I don't know if you guys notice a trend in the new year. Rob just, leaves the room and mutes the entire thing and takes me out of it. And I don't, it's because he got Rashad ready, and you can see Rashad right now. He's down there in the screen and looking awesome in all of his Carolina stuff. But Rob just keeps taking me out of the thing. Like I can't talk to the people, and I'm here for the people. I am the representative of the people on this program. So, so I'm talking to the people. Let's see. Kevin says Spencer would be better than Russell Wilson. No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't. Russell Wilson, not who a lot of people think he is. But he's better than Spencer Rattler. And Russell Wilson has actually played better this last game since he lost his coach. Hopefully he won't play that well this week, but we'll see. Just because Kansas City needs that victory over the Raiders. Is he better than Zach Wilson? Maybe. I don't know. I think they're kind of similar. If you want to know the truth. We'll see. Yeah, a couple of years ago, I could see that, Trey, when he came out to all the hype. But I think he got hurt a little bit mentally when he got benched, as most people do. We'll see how long it takes Rob to get back. Will he make it back before the break is over? He gets lost in the hallway sometimes. The hallways are empty, and you hear echoes of there he is. He's back. Why you keep taking me out of the stream, man? Why you keep doing that?
Because I had to change the background, and I'm trying to increase our production levels.
Oh, okay.
I
don't. That's not happening.
What's up, big dog? Is he in queue? I can't hear him.
No, he just.
Sorry, I was muted.
Yeah.
What's up, bro?
He didn't want to talk to me. So
no, my bad. I didn't even realize I was muted.
Plus, I didn't ask him any questions because I thought he was muted. So
yeah, I came from a Zoom call, so my connections were not working. So I had to unmute.
Shad's on the grind again.
Yeah, always.
Generations of families have trusted Vicks VapoRub to help relieve the worst cold symptoms. So next time you have a cough, reach for the Vicks VapoRub. Vicks VapoRub. Cough relieving is believing.
So Rashad, if you got invited somewhere you weren't supposed to go, would you go?
It depends. What's the occasion? I like crashing parties.
So a dude that lives down in Florida named Scott Stallings, who has a wife named Jennifer, received an invite to play in the Masters that was supposed to be sent to professional golfer Scott Stallings, who also has a wife named Jennifer. And instead of doing what I would have done, which is just dress ridiculous and go and try to get in with the invitation, he put it online and sent it back to the Masters. And I'm like, dude, no, don't. Like, I grab my sticks and I show up at the Masters like, hey, you invited me, I'm playing.
I'm going. Yeah, I'm going.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I'm crashing that.
I'm gonna ask to get paired up with John Daly and go ridic.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate. Rob Lonzo and you, and joining us now because it's Thursday and we are not on vacation anymore. The host of the Panther Nation podcast, my guy, Rashad Beard, is in the house with us today.
Rashad needs his own theme music. You got to come up.
I definitely need some.
Yeah, he does. You and I should talk off the air and we'll figure something out.
Rashad needs walkout music.
Yeah, we got to make sure.
Music.
We got to make sure it's something that won't get flagged. We won't get flagged on. We don't want to be back in Facebook jail or anything.
Need some walkout music for Rashad. Let's talk a little football here. Rashad Beard, a season in which, and granted, it's thanks to the fact that the NFC South this year is a garbage fire inside of a slightly larger garbage fire. The Panthers were put on the line for a division last week, and fell apart late. Two thoughts that I had from it. Let me get your reaction. First and foremost, defense fell apart in this game. I'd love to blame the offense. They put up what I thought should have been enough points to beat Tampa, a 10-point lead with 8 minutes remaining. Should have got it done. The defense fell apart. And because of that, Steve Wilks is not going to be the head coach of the team next year. The fact that his side of the ball, even with injuries, had such a poor game plan against Brady and the Bucs tells me he's not ready to be the HC in a big moment, which is why Tepper reached out to Jim Harbaugh before anybody else did. What are your thoughts on all that?
Lots to unpack, but I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I feel like it's, for me personally, you got to put yourself in Tepper's shoes. Tepper did fire a guy named Ron Rivera, who Wilks is a descendant from his tree. We saw very, a lot of Rivera tendencies in that Bucs game. You know, if you go back and look at that, to me, the 4th and 1 call, going into halftime, up 14-0, 4th and 1 with 3 minutes left to go in the half, and you punt the football. You give Tom Brady more opportunities to score, and what do? They put up 10 points, and we fell apart. To me, that signaled that was the turning point again. I know we were still up 21-10, blah, 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 blah. But the momentum, it was all at that point, the writing was on the wall. And at that moment, all I saw was Ron Rivera. I saw Ron Rivera, and I love Ron Rivera's a great coach. He's a fantastic. I love Ron Rivera, 2-time coach of the year, but he couldn't get us over the hump. So Tepper has to ask himself, am I going to put myself in that scenario once again? Is Wilks a better coach than Ron Rivera? Now, we've seen McDermott go and do it. McDermott still hasn't gone to the big dance. So, I mean, he's got a great quarterback, doing great up there. Perennial playoff team, but they haven't got the Super Bowl. And the objective is not a feel-good story. It's not to say, hey, he's from Charlotte. This is great. I love Wilks. At the end of the day, the objective is to win a Super Bowl. And you got to ask yourself, can Wilks get you a Super Bowl? Based off of that game, I question it. I question it, and I saw a lot of Ron Rivera tendencies.
How do you feel about the fact that while you and I and Lonzo, I think this is the first time we've all kind of agreed on something in this direction, while we all feel that way, you've got Derek Brown and others coming out going, we want Wilks to be the guy. My fear for Tepper is that whoever he goes with, whether it is Harbaugh or one of the coordinators, or even if he rolls the dice and puts out a treasure trove to get Sean Payton, if it does anything less than win a Super Bowl, Tepper's reputation with the players in the locker room who are very clearly saying we want Wilks back next year, he kind of runs the risk of alienating himself a little bit. And that's the foundation for creating toxicity within a franchise. And that is my number one concern right now.
Yeah, and I think that's a valid point. I mean, at the end of the day, you do have to listen to the players, right? You have to. It can't be the end all be all, right? You can't have your players making the decisions because, they play the game, right? But I feel like you have to, listen to the players and their opinion you should at least give the optics that you're listening to your players and you're taking their concerns into play. But at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for the team. Some of these players won't outlast, if you get the right coach, they won't outlast the coach, right? You want your coach to be there a long time, right? So there's going to be players that come and go. And if it takes our new coach going in and bringing in guys that are going to buy in, then so be it. I mean, you have to do what you got to do to win the Super Bowl. And I understand it. I get it. They like Wilks. I like Wilks. We all like Wilks. But is it going to get you a Super Bowl? And I'm not here for Phil. I want a Super Bowl, bro. Whatever it takes to get a Super Bowl in the Carolinas, that's what I want. And if it's Wilks, let's roll with it. If you feel like Wilks can coach you up to that, then let's do it. But I question who his offensive guy is going to be. Can you keep said offensive guy if he's hot, right? Because that's my biggest concern too. Keeping that offensive mind. If you go out and get a young offensive mind, guess what happens? If he's great, he's gone immediately. Then you get into the cycle of I got to find a new offensive guy. There's no continuity on offense. That's why I'm always a proponent of getting an offensive mind. I've said that for years. We've never had an offensive coach here in Carolina. So I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough scenario for Tepper. He's got to walk a thin line.
All right, let's switch it up. Let's talk quarterbacks for a second, because I believe, if I read it correctly, the highest the Carolina Panthers could end up in the draft this weekend is 5th. The lowest is 9th, which means you're drafted 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. There are effectively 2 quarterbacks in this draft class that most people think will be successful at the next level. That is Bryce Young at Alabama, although I do have flashbacks to hearing a lot of the same things about Tua. Tua had a better year this year under Mike McDaniels, but also not spectacular because of the injuries and whatnot. CJ Stroud, who I think might be the most can't-miss product at quarterback, maybe since Lamar came out of Louisville a few years back. But it's going to cost you a hefty haul of draft picks to get one of those guys, because Carolina will not be the only team that's looking to trade up to get one of the 2 of them, which leaves you also with another year of Sam Darnold on the table, flipping to Matt Corral and giving the Rook a chance, or the second-year guy a chance, making a play for Derek Carr out of Las Vegas, or, and I threw this out yesterday, and Lonzo hated me for it, if Tom Brady does leave Tampa, making a play for TB12 for a 1-year rental. As of today, which direction are you leaning?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to the quarterback position, it's the most important position on the field, right? So if you go out and you need to trade up to get a CJ Stroud, so be it. The objective is to get that quarterback, right? So do whatever it takes. Nobody's going to care if we gave up a couple first-round picks to get CJ Stroud if we're in the playoffs every year. Nobody's going to care, right? It's always that hindsight mentality if it doesn't work out, right? So I'm go get the quarterback if that's what you want to do. Now, in the meantime, because I do think CJ Stroud could, he could, benefit from learning behind somebody. I don't see a problem with bringing back Sam Darnold. I think he's played pretty well over the last 5 games he started. I don't think the loss was in particularly on him. He did have a couple of turnovers. Some of them were not his fault. But I think he's played okay. I think he's played enough to come back and be that bridge quarterback. And we go back to talking about bridge quarterbacks. We probably should have kept Teddy Bridgewater back in the day. We probably wouldn't be in this scenario in the first place. You have to have a viable option at quarterback to get you over the hump while said quarterback is learning his role, right? Matt Corral could be that guy, but Matt Corral, he got lost in the sauce. That's what happens when you get drafted under lame duck head coach. I kind of called that when it happened. I feel bad for the kid because he got hurt, had a real good opportunity to kind of play if he was not hurt. But it is what it is. So I'm not going to wait on Matt Corral to draft the court. That's not what I'm going to do. If the opportunity is there to get me a CJ Stroud, I'm going to get him.
Is there a guy that's not Bryce or CJ? A Will Levis, the kid out of Stanford, I'm blanking on his name right now. Is there a quarterback after the first 2 that you would roll the dice on, or would you put Matt Corral's potential above all of them, regardless of the fact that he's a rule guy?
No. I think, well, there is some names I would take. I like Levis. I think Levis is getting kind of the short end of the stick here when it comes to these evaluations, because he played at Kentucky, right? He didn't have the all-star team that CJ Stroud has or Bryce Young has. I think he's better than a lot of people are giving him credit for. He has a lot of turnovers, and I think he has that. He's like a diet. I hate comparisons because we always go to the great. We never go to like the mid-level, but he does give me Josh Allen vibes a little bit. I think he has the ability to run the football. I do like Levis. I think if he's on the board 5 through 9, are you taking him? It depends who else is there. Like if a Carter is there, Jalen Carter out of Georgia is there, I'm probably going to go him. It just depends how the board falls. I also like Anthony Richardson, depending on who my head coach is. Anthony Richardson has got a lot of tools. He's going to need a year to sit probably, but Anthony Richardson out of Florida is a really good prospect. I think he has a lot of intangibles that you could use, especially when it comes to running the football. I think he's a really good quarterback. So I would look at Anthony Richardson and Will Levis as well. I think those guys are options.
All right, let's take a look at the game this weekend, regular season finale, and courtesy of the loss to Tampa now, the season finale for both the Panthers and the Saints in the Who Cares Bowl down in New Orleans. But look, this one's interesting for me for a couple of reasons, and I'll ask you if you feel the same. It's interesting for me, obviously, because, I don't think that the Panthers-Saints rivalry, at least to me, is quite as vicious as the New Orleans-Atlanta rivalry or the Carolina-Atlanta rivalry. But let's be real, there's a little NFC South bad blood there. But more importantly, I think this game is an evaluation game for next year, right? Like, I think we're going to throw starters at each other and try to win the game, but you're going to get an opportunity to watch some of the young cats. When I say that, I'm talking about guys like Shi Smith. I want to see what you do in this game when you've got your opportunity. On the flip side, Chris Olave at New Orleans, are you really that dude, or are you going to shut it down when there's not a prize at the end? What does this game, as the regular season finale and the end of both of our seasons, what does this game mean to the Carolina Panthers for Rashad Beard?
Yeah, well, not necessarily to me, because it's a who cares bowl for me. I don't care win or loss, but I do think you brought it up earlier in regards to, this team wanting to play for Wilks. I think they want to get this W for Wilks to kind of go out on a high note. Couple of things I want to see in regards to this game. I want to see DJ Moore get his fourth consecutive 1,000-yard season. So I think he needs like 117 yards or something like that. 120. We'll round it up. But I want to see him get that because I think he had a rough start to the season. So I definitely want to see him get that by any means necessary. Feed him the ball. Give him the rock no matter what. Couple of screens. Let him – whatever it takes to get him 1,000 yards, I want to see that. As far as anything else, man, I really want to. I want them to, if they want Wilks to be the head coach, they're gonna have to play hard. They're gonna have to go out there and beat the Saints, and I think it means a lot to them. I'll be live streaming, I'll be watching, but for me, it doesn't really matter. I don't really care win or loss. Of course, I want to beat the Saints. Of course, I mean, like you said, not as vicious as the Falcons, but we always want to win against the NFC South rival whenever possible.
Rashad Beard, host the Panther Nation podcast. Make sure you're following them at Panther Nation PC, getting ourselves ready for the regular season finale. And then we all turn towards the draft in March. Rashad, appreciate you as always, big fella. We'll get you back next week and we'll wrap up the season, man.
Absolutely. Hopefully I'll be screaming "we that" because I think we are going to be that.
I mean, look, you just said a second ago, I don't care about this game, win or loss.
Hey, man, if we win, I will victory lap.
There it is.
Be clear.
There it
Be
is.
clear.
Vic, you are that dude that used to play GoldenEye and lose and go, nobody cares, Rob. Nobody cares. It's all right. It's all right. That's football. It's what we do. Rashad, talk to you next week, big dog. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Thanks.
There you go. That is Rashad Beard, host of the Panther Nation podcast. Make sure that you are following them on social media at Panther Nation PC. More importantly, on YouTube at Panther Nation Podcast so that you can keep up to date. Speaking of Panther Podcast, the Views from Mint Street podcast. I don't look at, somebody asked me the other day, like, why would you have a competitor on? I don't think it's competitor. It's a completely different style show, right? Completely different style pod. Dave and Rashad have their stuff. We have ours. I think they absolutely work in sync with each other. So make sure you check out them on YouTube and make sure you
Does that mean that we don't? Well, what would you point that out?
No,
they absolutely does. Is that what you're saying?
I meant their pod and our pod work in sync with each other, not Dave and Rashad do and Robinzo don't.
Thank you for the clarification. I was just trying to help the people out there listening because I'm sure that that's what they thought.
Lonzo and Rob work well in sync together. All right. Which is why you should check out the Views.
Not
from
in 2023, we don't.
Not so far. Views from Mint Street available where major podcasts are found, ladies and gentlemen, including for free on the Odyssey app. Just subscribe and download Views from Mint Street to keep up on everything Carolina Panthers. We will drop our NFC South rival New Orleans Saints preview pod tomorrow afternoon. Let's run to a break. Hour one in the books. When we come back in hour number two, I have for you a hilarious clip from Jimbo Fisher contradicting himself. Yes, we're all going to laugh at Jimbo, but about something that impacts everybody in college football. Then, second segment, Emily Adams of the Greenville News will join us. We'll talk a little South Carolina ball with her at 10:45. Clemson basketball. After an offseason of people screaming they want Brad Brownell gone, has just done something they have not done since 1996. And it's worth talking about. That's at 10:45. Then at 11 o'clock, I have something regarding the growth of soccer in this country that is going to shock you because I've got data to back it up. I'll tell you what that is at 11:22. Fight Club with Lonzo. Twitter trending topics to wrap it all up. Your text and phone calls are welcome in the meantime on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate.
The boss thinks it's funny that I got flagged for Metallica.
It kind of is. James said Atlanta seems to bring out the hate from everybody. I hate a dirty bird. I hate a dirty bird.
My reply email is stinking Lars. Took him a year to notice, but he found it.
Remember the whole
first Napster, now me.
Remember the whole Napster thing when all that started? It gave me this impression that Lars Ulrich sits in front of his computer every day, just clicking through YouTube videos.
That was exactly my point. Obviously, I have the same.
You're just the most recent.
Yeah, I have to say it too. That's what I'm saying. I took him a while to notice, but chances are I'm the one who did it too, because during that time I lost everybody and it was just me in studio, and I must have left that in utility. I have since replaced all our music with what we've done here, and I just gotta find something similar to replace on there. I didn't even think about being flagged on Word also. He's asking me to take it down. The problem is that what they said is they cut out the last 38 seconds.
Yeah.
So they removed the music. So why do I need to take the video down if they remove the music? I guess that's a discussion I will have with him later because I don't. It's all new territory.
Go grab a water.
Can't do that, James, because they're copywritten. We have specific music that we play on this show that can go on stream. And I got flagged for Upstate Pulse for something I did a year ago. And so you got to find, and we have a music library that we can use that is streamable and also podcastable. I don't know if that's a word, but it is now. And yes, Kevin, I do. But this the whole streaming thing is still it's such new territory for us. You find out what you shouldn't do sometimes by doing it and getting caught rather. There's nothing more metal like saying, dude, I just got busted by Metallica. But the answer is, okay, I will no longer showcase your music on my show. So there, take that hit. Sure is devastating.
Hey, man, can't pay the bills with exposure, bro.
Unless you're Mandy Rose.
Bravo, Lonzo. Bravo. Outstanding. That's a Rob Brown joke. I like it. Kevin says, have you seen Metallica live? I've seen Metallica live twice. However, interesting enough, the first one I saw them live was on the Saint Anger tour. and they played a lot of St. Anger stuff, which I did not love. But then I saw them on the Death Magnetic tour, and they really leaned on old Metallica, and it was phenomenal.
I got to be honest, I'm not the biggest Metallica fan. I mean, I'm okay with them, but yeah, the song I used was Riding the Lightning, I think, which worked for lightning round. So, you know.
Ladies and
First one of the year. First one of the year, and it's you, not me.
you did it yesterday.
I did not.
Yes, you did.
I did. I don't recall. I don't recall what the gentleman on the other side of the aisle is pointing out.
For those of you that don't know what we're talking about because you don't watch the stream, which is available at facebook.com/thefanupstate or by searching and subscribing to the Rob Brown Show on Twitch or YouTube. Lonzo and I have a weekly competition to see who talks without turning on their microphone first more often. See, unlike a lot of other hosts, Rob Brown has many added duties to his hosting responsibilities. I turn on and off my own microphone.
What?
I know.
You know, maybe it's because they have an on and off button on that side. You know, maybe.
So Zoe and I keep a running tally during the week of who starts talking without opening their mic more often. And the prize to the winner at the end of the week is that we don't ever talk about it at the end of the week.
And it's I don't want to say it was so organic. It just started started happening, and that's fine. And you say we don't talk about it, but we each know who won.
So if you ever hear us crack the mic and just say a random number, that's how many times we've done that week. So 1. Hour number 2 of the Rob Brown Show starts now. This is the Fan Upstate. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rob Brown. Directly across from me is the great one, Lonzo. If you would like to be a part of the program, do it now at 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-FANFO, and 844-326-3663. And now is your best segment to do it. The first segment of this hour and the first segment of the next hour, because Emily Adams will join us in the final segment of this hour to talk South Carolina athletics. Then in the second segment of the next hour, we've got Fight Club with Lonzo, and then Twitter to wrap it up. So the first segment of this hour and the first segment of the next hour are going to be the best times to get in on the show. The text line is open for you as well at 71307, 71307. Start your text with FAN, F-A-N. We'll read them on the air. Texter says, the bromance of Rozo.
Don't be doing that shipping thing or whatever they call that. Yeah, I can say it correctly, so I don't have to worry about it. So, but anyway.
Boat.
No, I realized when I started saying it that I used a forbidden word, and I shouldn't do that. The forbidden word.
Texter says if Spencer Rattler goes to the NFL, he will take a $1 million pay cut. I don't know. And I think that's part of the reason I've said Spence should come back for another year, because I think his draft stock is so in flux right now. I think it is so up in the air. Is he a second rounder? Is he a sixth rounder? Lonzo thinks there's a potential he doesn't get drafted at all.
Because of body of work.
Yeah.
I mean, the last 3 games were really good, but body of work, I mean, I'm guessing that the NFL vets everybody they draft.
Sure. Here, let me see if I can make an argument that makes you comfortable. Then I want to get to this Jimbo Fisher sound. Let me see if I can make this argument that makes you comfortable. Spencer Rattler's body at work as a freshman at Oklahoma was remarkable. Remarkable. Tons of success under Lincoln Riley in year number 1. Year number 2, not so much. That being said, Spencer Rattler in year 2 at Oklahoma was putting up respectable numbers. They weren't great, but they were respectable. He lost his job not because he was playing poorly at quarterback, but because Lincoln Riley decided on to the next Heisman Trophy candidate style player in Caleb Williams. If there was not a Caleb Williams there, Spencer Rattler doesn't lose his job at Oklahoma and doesn't transfer out unless he followed Lincoln Riley to SC like Caleb Williams did. Spencer Rattler is my argument for the transfer portal. Because if Spencer Rattler didn't have the portal, he would have been stuck behind Caleb Williams at Oklahoma, an NFL caliber quarterback projected, emphasize bold italics, an NFL projected draft pick, would have had a hell of a freshman year, would have had a mid-tier sophomore slump, would have been replaced by the next big thing at QB, and would have ridden the pine through the end of his career at Oklahoma and never got a chance to go to the league. But because the portal exists, Spencer Rattler was able to transfer out, come to Carolina, take over as the starter, and get his opportunity. And before you hit me with, yeah, Rob, but what if Luke Doty would have been that guy? Maybe he would have. You know what else Luke Doty had the option to do should he have wished to do so? Hit the transfer portal and go somewhere he would have been a starter. Maybe it wouldn't have been as big as a South Carolina. Maybe it would have been a Liberty. Maybe it would have been a Coastal. Maybe it would have been an ECU. But he could have transferred and been the starter somewhere else and tried to blow up his NFL stock. Spencer is the argument for the portal, which segues to a beautiful piece of sound that I want to get to. Y'all remember when there was all the conversation going on about Texas A&M and how they put together last year one of the greatest recruiting classes ever, and then all the criticism started flying in about NIL. Texas A&M put together a remarkably efficient NIL collective that was able to get money on the books for incoming Ags. Remember all that? And remember how Jimbo Fisher, when Texas A&M was at the peak, when Texas A&M was bringing in a number one class, and people started asking questions, hey, Jimbo, are you sure there's nothing shady going on in your program? You got buku NIL money coming in. Are you sure it's all legit by the rules? And remember when Jimbo Fisher started to go off on, well, we're doing it the right way. We're doing it fine. Everything's fine. This is good. This is good for college football. It's good for Texas A&M. Remember all that? Check out this soundbite from Jimbo Fisher, who got asked a very interesting question yesterday. Oh, now it's a problem. Now it's ruining college football. Wasn't ruining college football last year when A&M, via NIL and the portal, put together the number one recruiting class. No, nay, my friends. Now it's ruining college football. Now that kids are leaving Texas A&M because the team was, what's the word to describe A&M this year? Bad. Now that Jimbo is getting exposed as an overrated coach, now that Jimbo is being exposed as a guy who ain't got it when everybody thought he did got it, now that Texas A&M has fallen from 1st to 12th in the recruiting rankings, and by the way, that class is still dropping, when portal entrances are getting out or are getting outflanked by portal exits, Now it's ruining college football. You know, I don't really have a problem with opportunists because let's be real. Sometimes to get ahead, you gotta be an opportunist, right? Sometimes you've got to look at a situation and go, yeah, this situation's bad for some people, but it's good for me. And I got to take advantage of that because it's sometimes the role's going to be reversed and the situation's going to be bad for me and somebody else is going to take advantage of it for their own good. I don't have a problem with opportunists, but my goodness, Jimbo, at least maybe, I don't know, be less transparent than a window.
Is someone going to call him out on it, though? Well, you said this a year ago.
I would have loved to.
Because he'll say, I didn't say that.
I would have loved to.
Because he seems like the person who would say, I didn't say it. And then,
100%. If I'm in that presser, halfway through that answer, when I realize what Jimbo is saying, I am grabbing my phone, popping in an ear pod, going to YouTube, and finding the clip from last year where Jimbo was going, oh, no, I think it's good for college football. I think it's good for everybody. There are a couple of phrases that people use that as soon as they use that phrase, I just tune out of the conversation. Not because their beliefs aren't important, but because their beliefs aren't going to change no matter what you do, right? I was talking with Captain America Chris Evans down the hall yesterday. He was listening to the show when he heard me say that the Pete Rose into the Hall of Fame discussion is one of like 3 topics that are banned from the show. I will not entertain that phone call or text or tweet. Hey, Rob, should Pete be in the Hall? I'm not talking about it because it's been going on for as long as I've been in radio. And never, ever, 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 in every time I've heard that discussion, comes up once a year. By the way, I don't know if you saw this the other day, Lonzo. Sports gambling just got legalized in the state of Ohio. Who placed the first bet in the state of Ohio? Pete Rose.
Well, I knew that was happening because every sport that was going on in Ohio, including the Monday Night Football game, they were mentioning, I believe that they were mentioning also about being able to bet because all the big sports gambling sites now are
available
legal
in Ohio.
Yeah.
Pete Rose placed the first sports wager in the state of Ohio, which hilarious to me, frankly. Quite funny.
Thought you wasn't talking Pete Rose. Sounds
Quite
like
funny.
you're talking Pete Rose
No.
when you say you're not talking Pete Rose. Okay.
I will not talk about should Pete be or not be in the Hall of Fame because nobody's going to change their mind. Chris said why, and I said because there are some conversations. This happens in politics too. There are some conversations that no matter what you do, you can bring the most rational and logic-based, true and factually correct argument in the world to someone, but they are so ingrained in their beliefs, you're never going to change their mind. Happens in politics, in religion, in sports. Somebody is so deep in their beliefs, no matter what you present to them, they won't change their mind. So there is no point to wasting my airtime on it.
You're right. You're never going to convince me that country music is good.
Correct.
No matter how hard you try.
Correct. And so therefore I don't. All right. So, when Jimbo said all that, the very first thing I would have done would have been to grab the phone, pop in the earplug, go back to last year and said, hey, Jimbo, I got a sound clip here that I wanted to play for you. I got a sound clip here that I wanted you to hear. And here's the sound clip. And I would have played Jimbo Fisher saying that NIL and portal are good. Jimbo, would you like to take a run at the idiot who said that? Would you like to take a run at this guy on YouTube who directly opposes what you just said? And I'd love to hear Jimbo backdoor his way out of that one. The point that I've made is this. First off, Jimbo Fisher's overrated and a clown. Jimbo Fisher is overrated and a clown. I've said that before. I'll say it again. All right. Jimbo Fisher did not win at Florida State because he's a great coach. Jimbo Fisher won the 2013 championship because Jameis Winston and Kelvin Benjamin were the best quarterback wide receiver duo that year. That's why he won it. That's why. No other reason. Not his coaching. He won it in spite of his coaching because of how good Jameis Winston was in 2013 for the Noles. End of debate. the portal is good for college football. I told you that yesterday with TCU. TCU, when they had to move on and brought in Sonny Dykes, lost 15 players after Gary Patterson left. 15. Decimated the program. So Sonny Dykes hit the portal, brought in 13 guys who weren't going to get PT elsewhere, who are now playing for a natty this year. NIL is good for college football. It's good for the kids, and therefore, to me, it's good for college football. Jimbo, if he wants to go on a rant about making sure that people aren't tampering with the portal, fine. Fine by me. If you want to go on a rant about making sure that coaches aren't reaching out, that boosters aren't reaching out, that fans aren't reaching out to kids that are not in the portal and trying to talk them into going into the portal, I am good with that. I have a problem with over-regulation. I don't have a problem with regulation. I have a problem with, we should put a cap on NIL. I don't have a problem with 5% of NIL earnings to players should go back into the program to be spread amongst the rest of the players that can't get NIL or don't get NIL. No problem with that. I got no problem when it comes to the portal with putting down a rule that says if anyone is caught talking to a player who is not in the portal about entering the portal, then the transfer portal is closed to that school for a year or 2 or 4. No problem with that. That's on the school, right? Kids can portal out of your school, but they are not allowed to portal in. I'm good with that. I'm fine with the regulation. And I'm fine with harsh regulation to make sure that nobody goes off and sneaky acts on behalf of the school without the school's permission. But for Jimbo to say a year ago in the midst of a number 1 class, all this is great. It's great for college football. It's great for A&M. And then this year, when he's got the number 12 and falling class, to say it's bad for college football. It's ruining college football. I started a thought a second ago. I said, there are some phrases that somebody says, and it makes me tune out to the conversation because that phrase is only used by people who are so entrenched in their belief that they're never going to change it. You know what one of those phrases is? One of those phrases is, so-and-so is ruining X. It's ruining blank. If somebody says, this thing is ruining movies, television, music, football, the NFL, food, X is ruining Y. Most of the time, I am immediately checking out of that conversation because what blank is ruining blank says to me is you have convinced yourself that your way is good and any other way is bad, and I'm not going to be able to rectify that in your brain. So when Jimbo says so-and-so is ruining college football, it gives me very old man yells at clouds vibes, and I'm out. I'm just going to walk to where everybody else is having regular conversation and go, yeah, I'm going to ignore that guy, and let's talk about the actual goods and bads, pros and cons. And let's figure out what the next step is to make sure this hits right. All right, a couple of texts that have come in. Texter says, so Jimbo and Dabo are driving around in the same clown car. You know what? No, and here's why. Because while I think his beliefs on it are hurting his football team, you know what I appreciate about Dabo? He's been consistent in his complaints. Now, Dabo's daboing with the portal, right? He's hosted a couple of portal recruits. He has gone to the portal a couple of times. So, at least he's been consistent, even if he is, to some degree, and I don't have a problem with this, hypocritical, right? I think it's bad for college football, but I'm also going to use it. And it's not that bad then, is it? It's not that bad, is it? But at least he's consistent. If Texas A&M puts together a number 1 recruiting class again next year because of NIL in the portal, all of a sudden Jimbo will think, this is good for college football, y'all. It's good for college football. Anyway, Texter says ketchup is ruining hot dogs. No, it's not. Ketchup goes fine on a hot dog. Ketchup goes fine on a hot dog. Texter said, you act like kids could never transfer before the portal. No, I don't. No, I know they could transfer. You got your one-time transfer, and you had your graduate transfer. I get it. What people are complaining about is guys like JT Daniels. JT's about to go to his 4th team. He's been at what? He was at West Virginia this past year. He was at Georgia before that. He was at USC before that. Now he's going to team number 4. Do I care? Nope. Not my life, not my business. I got friends who job hop every year too. Do I tell them that they're bad and wrong and disloyal? No, because I don't care. I don't care. Stop acting like you do. Texter said, can you educate us younger viewers on Pete Rose? I know what you're doing, Texter. I know what you're doing.
A chance to tell people who don't know why you don't like Pete Rose?
Pete Rose gambled on baseball. Gambling is against the rules in baseball. Pete Rose was blacklisted from the Hall of Fame for gambling on baseball. He won't be allowed back into the Hall of Fame because of baseball, despite the fact that he is baseball's Mr. Hitter.
By the way,
end of story.
You need to tweak that a little bit. He bet on his own team. Gambling is no longer illegal in a lot of states, but he bet on his team.
Yeah, can't do that.
Bet again. Well, he bet that his team would win, right? If I recall.
Yes.
So, I mean, yeah. And Pete Rose is in the Hall of Fame.
He broke the rules. He's not eligible. And both of the last 2 commissioners have said they're not going to let him in.
Pete Rose is in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Ooh. Texas says Nick Saban has also said NIL is not good for college football. Of course he has. NIL and the portal have stopped allowing teams to hoard talent and stash talent on the bench so that they can't go play for other teams and be a threat. NIL prevented things like TCU. The portal prevented things like TCU. Now with the portal and NIL, all of a sudden, teams like TCU. Hey, by the way, who was the next team in the playoffs that got left out?
Alabama.
Yes. That's why Nick Saban's against NIL, because it made his job harder. Do you think Sonny Dykes thinks NIL is bad for football or the portal's bad for college football? Hell no. It's all about opportunity, boys and girls. Let's take a break. We're back after this. Got one more segment. Emily Adams from the Greenville News will join us in about 13 minutes to talk South Carolina. Then, top of the 11 o'clock hour, I got 2 different stories I want to run through. One of them is going to be some numbers that prove to me that, yet again, not only is football growing, and by football I mean soccer, in this country, but that y'all care about it more than you say you do. Talk about that and a little drama in the Greg Berhalter story that's been developing. Then at 11:20, time for Fight Club. Twitter to wrap it up. The Rob Brown Show's on your radio. It's the Fan Upstate. Also, country music is good, and George Strait makes some absolute romantic bangers. Kevin, well said.
Country music is torture.
Do you love me? Do you want to be my friend?
You can't convince me otherwise.
And if you do, country music is ruining music.
George Strait, stale Mike country music.
Hell yeah, he does.
Does he? What's his last hit?
And I would pay
What
an
was his last
absolute.
hit?
I have no idea what his last hit was because they don't play good country music on the radio. Bro country is ruining country music.
What the heck is bro country?
Jason Aldean.
Why is that bro country?
Bro country.
What is bro country?
Bro, it's like the new age country that is less country and more like pop music that puts a steel guitar and think that makes it country. It's pop. And again, I got no problem with pop music.
Millennial country?
No, I mean pop country, bro country. Millennial country is fine. There's some great. Chris Stapleton is an old school country guy making young people country music. Jason Isbell.
Just because he's tubby and he's got a beard.
Jason Isbell's not tubby and he doesn't have a beard. Makes phenomenal music. And it's country music. And if you haven't heard of Jason Isbell and the 500 unit, I implore you to go find their music at noon after the show is over.
Wait till after lunch because you'll lose it listening to country.
Do you want to be my friend? And if you do, Damar Hamlin is awake. Very cool. What new rock is good? Rock's got the same problem, man. It's gone pop. It's all about radio playability and selling singles. It's not about music anymore. The Foo Fighters still put out good rock and roll every now and then.
You sound like such an old man right now.
I absolutely do. But you know what else I sound like? Like I'm correct. Kevin's exactly right. Who is a current good? You know what the problem with music is? Nickelback was never bad. Nickelback's first few, Maroon 5 is the ultimate example. Maroon 5's first two albums were absolutely rock and roll as hell, and they were good. And then Maroon 5 got popified by the machine so that they could sell more singles and get more plays on TV. And Maroon 5 went from great rock and roll in their first couple of albums to pop garbage. And again, if pop music is your thing, have at it.
Oh, yeah, Kevin, you're lame.
Got him.
I would say that Diesel could name a few bands, but I see him complaining all the time about how bad new music is. So
Diesel can name some good bands. Diesel, I will acknowledge, puts in more work to find them, but he's also a rock DJ, so it's kind of his job.
If your first bet doesn't win, just sign up with a promo code WIN. FanDuel has all your favorite bets from the money line to point spreads to player props. So sign up today with promo code WIN for your no-sweat first bet. Make every moment more this season with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Lucky President State for lawful wager. 21 plus select states. First online real money wager. Only refund issued. Eligible free bets expire 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Every problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit fanduel.com/RG. Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Virginia. 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. Arizona, 1-800-79-7777.
Did you ever see the theory that the show River Monsters ended because the guy had run out of fish to catch? He had just caught all the river monsters, so they ran out of monsters for him to hunt.
well, he needs to go a little bit deeper where they're still discovering species of fish.
Let's see. River Monsters, hosted by, what was the name of the host? Jeremy Wade. Did an episode in season 7 called Killers from the Abyss.
By the way, Kevin, I'll accept white trash from the south side of Columbus, but podunk, that's not me. You gotta speak like this if you're gonna be podunk.
Real quick segment here. Well, let me say this one more time for my own sake. If you hear a coach say that NIL or the portal is bad for football, most of the time they are coming from dominant powerhouses in college football. It's the Knicks, the Dabos, the Jimbos of the world. And the only reason they're saying that is because NIL and the portal have increased parity in college football, and it's made their job more difficult. That's it. That's the reason. Do you think that Shane has had a problem with NIL and the portal? Absolutely not. It got him Austin Stogner. It got him Spencer Rattler. To switch sports, Gigi Jackson stayed in Columbia probably partially because of the knowledge of NIL deals coming down the pipe. It increases parity in sport. So if you're a fan or a coach of a Bama, of an Ohio State, of a Michigan, of a Georgia, you are far more likely to be against NIL in the portal, things that open up parity, because it's made your job more difficult. You used to be able to recruit, if you were Nick Saban, by walking into a house and going, son, you're going to play for the University of Alabama. And getting to play for UA was the best way to increase your visibility and give yourself chances for money after you were done playing ball. Now it's not. A kid that is the starter at Coastal Carolina at quarterback has the chance to make more money than the kid who is the third string quarterback at the University of Alabama, who's never going to be seeing the field. So yes, Jimbo and Nick and the coaches of the big schools are always going to be the ones you see complaining about the portal and NIL, because they see the Shane Beamers and the Sonny Dykes of the world having success that can be directly traced and tied to the NIL and portal scenarios in college football. It's real simple. Name me the biggest critics of NIL and the portal. And almost always, I can point to the fact that they are wearing a capital G or A or O or M on their shirt, whether they're a fan or a coach. Parity is increased. TCU is the example. If TCU did not have access to the transfer portal, they would not be playing for a college football national championship. If they weren't playing for a college football national championship, then Alabama would have been in the playoffs this year. Can you see how Nick Saban would think it's a bad thing now? Let's take a break. When we come back, Emily Adams from the Greenville News is going to join us. We'll talk a little South Carolina athletics next on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Be right back, stream. Got to give Zoe a phone number, and we will click right back in. Stay right there. Sorry, didn't know I still had the thingy up.
Yeah, Roger, I probably know those guys. I don't know.
The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate. Glad to have you, ladies and gentlemen. Rob Brown, the great one, Alonzo, with you today. And now we welcome back for the first time in 2023 a friend of the show. She is in Columbia, South Carolina, where she covers the University of South Carolina Athletic Department. She is Miss Emily Adams from the Greenville News here on the Rob Brown Show. Emily, Happy New Year. Welcome back.
What's up, Rob? Good to be back in 2023, starting the new year right.
I love it. I love it. How was the Christmas and New Year for you?
Can't complain. Got home to Philly for a little bit, so it was a lot colder there than it was here.
Wait, are you
so
from?
happy
Wait.
to be back in the 50 plus.
Did you just go back to fit? You are too nice to be from Philly, Emily.
I can confirm I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I have been south of the Mason-Dixon for about a year and a half. So before that, full Northeasterner.
That's south of the Mason-Dixon has worn off on you. You laugh too much to be from Philly. Emily Adams here on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. All right, Emily, let's get into it. And let's start with this only because we have had the conversation about it for the last couple of days. Is there, as of now, any indication about Spencer Rattler's future? I have heard a ton of speculation. I have heard some rumors that today or tomorrow he might give a little bit of an indication about whether he's leaning towards the draft or another year in Columbia. But A, do we have any insight on what that decision might be? And B, do you side with me on one more year in Columbia would probably be the best route for Spencer Rattler?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. He's both him and Beamer, I feel like, have held it very close to the chest, which I think, makes sense just knowing the kind of kid that he is and, how private he is now after kind of everything he went through in his past. But I think the bowl game made things weird. I think if the bowl game had gone better for him, it would have been a clear, declare for the draft. We're in a good enough spot. It's fine, with those last couple of games at the end of the season there to kind of back it up. But I think because the bowl game was kind of back to that sort of good, not great performance that he had for a lot of the year, I don't think it did what it maybe they had hoped that it would do to kind of move him up on the big board. And so now I feel like it's in a weird spot where I can't see, outside of the threat of injury, I can't see another year in college hurting him, especially with this quarterback class. I just don't think this is a class that when you're, in the place that Spencer Rattler's in, you don't want to be, held up in comparison to the Bryce Youngs and CJ Strouds of the world, because it's just not going to end well, I don't think.
Emily Adams joining us here on the show. And, I got asked earlier, in fact, Lonzo asked me earlier, where do I think he goes in the draft? And my thought was, honestly, probably 5th, 6th round guy right now. There's a lot of momentum that was built on the win over Clemson, on the win over Tennessee, and despite the performance against Notre Dame. But I think you're spot on. There are so many other QBs that are Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, guys that aren't Young or Stroud, but guys that have got some level of, we've seen really, really bright spots. Spencer obviously had some bright spots at the end of the year, and you can go back to his freshman year when he was at Oklahoma, and he was absolutely phenomenal before he lost his job in year 2 in the sophomore slump. But, I think with Dow Loggins coming in, a pro-style guy, it's a gamble either way, Emily, but I suspect we will see a more traditionally pro-style offense next year, and a year of success under that as opposed to 3 games of success under question mark Marcus Satterfield calling the plays would be good for Columbia, sure, but I honestly think it would be good for Spence as well.
Yeah, well, and I think the thing is too with what Juice Wells has said. If Spencer comes back, I think as well, and I think that's a big deal, just in that he'll still have weapons. He's Leggett has said he'll be back next year, so it's not like he's coming into some massively depleted offense that he's going to have to relearn alongside a bunch of new guys again. I think especially the passing game, if Rattler and Wells return, is will be one of the most veteran then at that point. And I mean, with Loggins, he's a quarterback's guy. He coached quarterbacks in the NFL before he was an OC. A lot of his OC jobs, he was also the quarterback's coach. So I mean, I just can't see, again, unless, that threat of injury is always going to loom and is always going to kind of be a fear factor in returning. But outside of that, I mean, it just seems like a much better path for him to take another year, to get another year fully settled in an offense and, see if he can elevate his stock from there. I mean, I think a former 5-star quarterback who was the number 1 prospect coming out of high school is always going to go in the draft, next year, whether he, has the same season he had this year or not, I think he'll go. It's just a matter of whether he'll compete for a starting role, whether he'll end up on a team with better resources and a better, structure to support him. And I think he gives himself the best chance at that with another year. I don't blame him if he goes, but I don't know that it's the best move at this point.
We are talking to Emily Adams from the Greenville News. She covers the Gamecocks of South Carolina. All right, let's refocus, Emily, on the bowl loss to Notre Dame. Listen, I know that is a game Gamecocks fans would have loved to have won, and we'll talk about football in a minute, but I said on Tuesday, my first day back after the bowl game, that I think I'm writing that down as a W, not because of the score of the game, obviously, but because of the show that Gamecocks fans put on, that the culture put on TV. In fact, there were multiple points. I was watching that game with a girlfriend. She's a Gamecock fan, where the play-by-play and color guys kept talking about the fans. I think after one of the touchdowns in the third quarter, they played Sandstorm over the speakers there at TIAA in America's worst city, Jacksonville, Florida. And there were tens of thousands of towels in the air. It looked on TV like a South Carolina home game with a good traveling of away team members in Notre Dame. To me, if you're watching that game as a recruit, you saw something special about the fan base of South Carolina. And even though they lost the game, I thought the presentation of South Carolina and their fan base and their culture and all that was a big boost for the program.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, it's hard to judge anything football wise in a game like that when, both teams, are not starting half of their starters, and you've got starting quarterbacks missing and the entire secondary missing for South Carolina. And I mean, it's just such a weird game to try to judge from a football perspective. And so I do think the biggest thing was just kind of the travel of the fans was really impressive. It certainly looked like a home game, from the press box. It sounded like a home game from the press box. And Notre Dame travels well. They had a really good contingent on their side of the stadium, considering, how far we were from their home stadium. But I mean, that was a South Carolina party in Jacksonville, and it was pretty cool to see. It was cool to see, the fans so excited about it. It was cool to see, even just, driving around town, so many South Carolina fans there. So, I mean, I think that definitely a win for the program. I think even just being in the Gator Bowl, in a bowl that had, that really high level of national exposure compared to, the Duke's Mayo Bowl, which is fun, but doesn't carry the same sort of little bit of prestige that a game like the Gator Bowl has. So I just think it was a big upgrade for them and a nice little way to cap the season, regardless of the outcome there.
Emily Adams of the Greenville News joining us here on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate. Let's talk about the game itself. Obviously, very, very interesting in terms of guys that had transferred out. Marshawn Lloyd not there, Jaheim Bell not there. Obviously, we've talked about all of that. Just the one tight end on the roster, which kind of forced a little bit of creativity out of the offense on that. Defensively, a couple of guys out due to injury, etc. What was just your overall, before we get into specifics, your overall take of the performance of South Carolina in a bowl game that to me was more of a referendum on what next year will look like than what this year did?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I mean, I don't have too much, again, like I said, analysis of it, just because so much of it was, sort of thrown together last minute. You have, it seemed like Freddie Kitchens and Nick Coleman were calling a lot of the plays, but, Beamer was saying it was kind of a team effort. So you had, weird things going on the play calling front, and the amount of guys that they had missing, especially at running back. You have Nate Adkins as the lone tight end, has a really great showing, by the way. Nate Adkins was kind of, I feel like, the breakout star of the last couple weeks of the season. But yeah, I mean, I thought that they were competitive as they were, that game was as fun to watch as it was, even with, so much kind of muddledness around it. I thought was a really good sign. And, what I ended up writing about afterwards too, was just a lot of the players were really emotional there afterwards. There was a lot of intensity around the game. And I think, for a bowl game like that, where, a lot of your key starters aren't there, to approach that game with that kind of emotion, with that kind of intensity, I think says a lot about Beamer, about the culture of the program and where it's at right now and where it's headed. And for me, it was all, there were no red flags. There were no bad signs. It wasn't the most beautiful game of football that's ever been played, but it was fun. And I thought they did, a fine job, all things considered.
Is that a game that you feel, based on the performance on the field? And I think a lot of South Carolina fans looked at Notre Dame, kind of disregarded this was the same team, the same Notre Dame team that shellacked Clemson a couple of months ago. Yeah. And looked at that 8-4 and went, we should beat this team. Marcus Freeman had a real resurgence with that Notre Dame team down the stretch a little bit. That to me was one that you go, you would have loved to have won that game, but you played a hell of a game with limited resources against a good Notre Dame team. And it really came down to the wire in that one. To me, it seems like a good game for Shane Beamer to kind of roll some momentum into next year using.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of, like I said, it sucks to lose, but it's also not, a loss that I think is critical. I think Notre Dame was in a very similar spot to South Carolina, honestly, coming into that game, of having had kind of a disappointing start and, really hitting their stride late in the year. And, coming into that without their starting quarterback and all of that, I think, it's hard for some fans to swallow getting beat by that. But, Notre Dame's backup was no slouch. Like Shane said a lot of times leading up to it, he did originally win the starting job before he got benched. And yeah, I mean, they had no problems with Clemson, and South Carolina's win over Clemson was fun, but it was a lot closer than Notre Dame's was. So I think it was just a tough matchup for them. And again, a tough situation with, a first-time play caller, and your entire run game is missing, and you have one tight end on the roster. So I mean, I think they positioned themselves as well as they could have in a loss with that performance.
Emily Adams covers the South Carolina athletic department for the Greenville News and joins us every week here on the show. All right, real quick pivot before we get out of here. You were live tweeting and watching the South Carolina Lady Gamecocks game the other night against the Georgia Bulldogs. It was one of only a couple of games that they've looked really challenged this year. Listen, even great teams are going to have an off night, and the mark of a great team is that you win even when you have an off night. for South Carolina fans that have got their eyes turned towards Aaliyah Boston and co. What's your take on the early portion of the SEC schedule and what Dawn's girls have accomplished so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's kind of nice for them right now is that a lot of their early SEC games are not against the big threats. You know, you've got LSU and Tennessee and Alabama all, and UConn too, which is not an SEC game, but it's still to come. You know, all of those are kind of once they, I think, have hit a rhythm in the conference schedule and all of that. And, you know, that Georgia game was not a total surprise. I mean, it was, they should never have been challenged by Georgia based on how that team has been the rest of this year. But, you know, we saw them lose their first road SEC game last year to Missouri in a very similar situation. You know, it was their first conference game on the road right after the holiday break. And they dropped that one. And so I think for them to have the comeback that they did and make those adjustments after halftime, as they've been able to do in a lot of their tougher games this season, you know, we saw it against Stanford, we saw it against UCLA. This is a team that is not going to have a second half letdown. And so for them to be able to turn that game around and win it by double digits against Georgia the way they did, I think obviously not good that they were down for so much of the game, but is a really good sign to me that this team is ahead of where they were last year. And last year they won a national championship. So there's not much further for them to go up. And I think they're still managing to do that. I mean, you know, Zaya Cook with the first 30 piece of her career in a game where everyone else on the team was really struggling to shoot, just, I think, tells you how many weapons this team has to turn to.
Emily Adams covers the South Carolina Gamecocks athletic department for the Greenville News. She is a regular here on the show, joins us every week. We'll do it again next week as we kind of start to pivot away from football and into college basketball season. Emily, you are the best. Happiest of New Year's. We're glad you're with us, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Rob.
You got it. Emily's the best. Appreciate you, Emily Adams from the Greenville News. Check her stuff out at EA Adams 6 on the social media at EA Adams 6. Let's take a break. We'll come back and get hour number 3 in the books next. Rob, Lonzo, you, the Rob Brown Show, the Fan Upstate.
Are you watching the thing I sent you?
Uh-huh.
Did you see him do the?
Uh-huh.
You know what it's from, right?
The one-winged angel, man.
Yeah, but you know who the one-winged angel is? It's Sephiroth from Final Fantasy,
Uh-huh.
and he's in Japan, and he's dressed like Sephiroth.
Got it.
I first saw it tweeted by
Even
by
not
Austin
knowing
Creed.
that, even not knowing that,
Yeah,
that's a dope-ass entrance.
yeah, it is. So I didn't listen to the sound to see if he actually used the music or not, which would be even better. But
And that is a hell of an entrance ramp and setup.
like I said, Xavier Woods tweeted it out. It's like, okay,
Well, if it's good enough for Creed, it's good enough for me.
his hair, Omega's hair being long works with that outfit
Yeah.
too. By the way, Kevin, I don't know if you knew this, but they have fish in Ohio, and they have fish north of the Mason-Dixon line. And you know what? People actually fish there, and I've been fishing a bunch of times. I've never been hunting, but I've shot a bunch of guns
You
before.
want to go hunting? I'll take you hunting.
Am I anti-hunting? No. Am I anti-fishing? No. Like I said, I've been fishing a bunch. Just not here. Because to fish, you have to have friends, and I don't have any of those.
You do not have to have friends to fish.
To hunt,
In
you got to
fact-
have friends. It's called fishing buddies and hunting
The
buddies.
majority of
Have
the
you heard
fishing-
that said
The
before?
majority of the fishing I've done in my life has been by myself. Fishing is remarkable quiet time.
But you grew up near the ocean also, and I did not. So I had to fish in lakes and rivers and creeks. No, I don't call creeks cricks, but I know people who do. I got to be honest. I'd rather play a video game because that's my choice of hobby. If I had to fish to live, I probably could fish to live. I'd be a lot thinner though, because biggest thing I caught was a bass that was like this big.
This big. I'll take Zoe fishing. I love some fishing. I don't need a friend to fish, but I'll take it because
Fishing bothers me because you got to get a license to do it, and that's just
in Florida, if your feet are on the ground, you don't have to have a license.
Well, here you do. And in Ohio, by the way, I had a fishing license. So there.
I do not hate Pete Rose. I do not dislike Pete Rose. I have no issue with Pete Rose. I just don't like talking about Pete Rose because nobody's ever had a segment about Pete Rose and ended it and gone, I think I've changed my mind on Pete Rose. I think he should now be in the Hall of Fame. Nobody's ever done that. So there's no point.
So you can fish with a cane pole without a license. I don't know. I'd have to look that up because, not that I don't trust you, but. Show. Come on, Rob. Mr. Rogers' middle name. Hey, we're going from Mr. McFeely to Deshaun Watson. What a transition. Come on, let's talk about happy endings.
Same great show, new time. The Rob Brown Show. Now 9 to noon, only on the Fan, Upstate.
Sunday on Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. The regular season begins with two NFC foes squaring off in our nation's capital as the Washington Commanders host the Dallas Cowboys. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, myself for all the action. Can the Cowboys ride a 3-game winning streak into the playoffs and potentially better their seeding?
How is there a what?
It's the Commanders and the Cowboys.
I thought I moved everything.
Sunday afternoon at 4. The NFL plays here on the Fan, Upstate.
I think the person who's doing the chapters is drunk.
Is doing them what?
The chapters is drunk. Or bored. Let's just mess with this guy today.
The third, the final, the best of money hour of the Rob Brown Show goes now. This is the Fan Upstate. Welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I am Rob Brown, the great one Lonzo at the helm today.
I have a sports question. It's not going to sound like a sports question, but it has to do with angling. So,
angling being fishing, if you're not watching the stream right now.
Yes. Do you fish for crab?
No, you trap crab.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Well,
let me rephrase that. You can, there is a way to catch crab, but traditionally, now I think when Kevin says you can crab fish without a license, he means you can put a pot down. I don't know the rules, the regulations in the great state of South Carolina regarding fishing. Like I know in Florida, you absolutely had to have a license to put down a crab pot.
What's a crab pot?
Cage trap.
Okay.
Crab
all
trap.
right.
They call them pots. You had to have a license to do that. You had to have a license to fish in Florida unless your feet were still on solid ground, right? So like you could fish from a bridge without a license. You could fish from the shore. You could fish from a dock without a license. But if you were going to get in a boat and go out of the water yet, blah, 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 blah. Fishing's awesome. I should do it
Okay,
more.
I just was just curious about the crab thing. I just and I knew you, being someone who grew up by the ocean, would know about the crab,
I did not grow up by the ocean. I grew up by the Gulf. The difference.
which is fed by the ocean and closer to
Connected
the.
to, but not fed.
closer
It's fed
to-
by the Mississippi River.
Wow. My landlocked behind is being
If I said
is being
Ohio
scolded right
is
now.
Kentucky, you'd be like, nope. Okay, let's get to some stuff, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? I saw this yesterday. I decided to get into. I'm trying to be better in 2023. I'm trying to be better for you guys. I'm trying to be better on the show. I'm trying to generate more content for you. I'm trying to be a better host. I'm trying to be a better content provider, both because you deserve it and also I want more money. So I'm doing it for everybody. Anyway, one of the things that I have added to my pre-show rotation at the beginning of the day, and one of the things I have done at the end of the day, is to add Google Trends searches to the list of websites I visit. Google Trends basically looks through all the Google searches for the day and compiles a list of the things that were searched for the most and the things that were most discussed on social media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so basically, at the beginning of the day, you can see what the hottest conversations were yesterday. And at the end of the day, you can see what the hottest conversations were of that day. And so it allows me to kind of get a grip on nationally what the conversations are about. For instance, yesterday, if you go look at the Google Trends searches from yesterday, the most searched item yesterday was Byron Donalds. Byron Donalds is a younger guy who is involved in the Speaker of the House debate going on within the Republican Party right now. The second most searched item yesterday was Brian Koberger. Brian Koberger is the man who is suspected of committing the multiple homicides at the college dorm in Idaho, who then fled back to Pennsylvania. And again, it's morbidly interesting in that he is a criminal justice student, right? So it's like criminal justice, and then he's committing murders, allegedly, et cetera. People were interested in looking at that. But then I looked at the number 3 and number 4 most searched Google searches in the United States of America yesterday. Number 3, 4, and 5, pardon me. Here were number 3, 4, and 5, Lonzo. Number 3 was Crystal Palace versus Tottenham. That was a midweek English Premier League soccer match.
I was going to say that's hockey, right?
Soccer. Close. It's grass hockey.
I was being sarcastic.
Yeah, we know. You're always saying you should. Lonzo should only clarify when he's not being sarcastic.
That's a good point. That's what I try to do, is like, I'm being sincere. I know you can't tell by the tone of my voice, but I'm being sincere.
The number 3 most searched Google result yesterday was Crystal Palace versus Tottenham. The number 4 most searched Google phrase yesterday was Salesforce. Salesforce is a company, don't need to get a ton into it, blah, blah, blah. Salesforce announced yesterday that they will be laying off about 10% of its workforce. A lot of employees for Salesforce. People were obviously searching it. The 5th most popular search yesterday was Barcelona. Barcelona, of course, a Spanish soccer team. Both of those teams had matches yesterday. Barca's in the Copa del Rey and Crystal Palace v. Tottenham in the EPL. Your first American sports searches yesterday, 7th place, Duke basketball. Duke got searched because Duke missed their first 13 field goal attempts in their game against NC State and lost. The 8th most searched yesterday was Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, it was announced yesterday, has had surgery, successful surgery, and the Cardinals are going with some guy you've never heard of as their quarterback for their season finale coming up on Sunday. Just behind them, the 9th most searched trend was Serie A, the Italian top league in football. The number 10 was Buffalo Bills' Damar Hamlin. So of the top 10 most searched Google Trends yesterday, you had 1, 2, because McCarthy speaker was one of them, 2 that were American politics, 1 that was an American serial killer, 1 that was American business. You had 2 that were American sports, and 3 were European soccer leagues. I'm not saying that it's anywhere near. Oh, by the way, if you were curious, baseball yesterday had a massive signing. Rafael Devers yesterday signed a new contract. One of the last remaining top-tier free agents available. If you view Rafi as one of them, I do. Rafi signed his contract. Rafi was, if I recall off the top of my head, because I closed the window, like 16 or 17 most searched. The point I'm making is this. For a sport that is irrelevant, for a sport that hasn't caught on, and for the record, Texter makes a good point. I'll get to you in a second, Texter. For a sport that is irrelevant, the fact that it outpaced Kevin McCarthy in the midst of the Republicans' battle over the Speaker of the House role. It outpaced Duke basketball. It outpaced Kyler Murray's season-ending surgery. It outpaced Damar Hamlin. It outpaced the Memphis Grizzlies. It outpassed Outer Banks. There's something to that. Now, Texter says, remember, Rob, you have to look up soccer stuff. The Bills player is on every channel. You don't need to look it up. And that's very valid. That's very valid. If you tune in, we got one of the channels on right now. They've done about 17 minutes now on Damar Hamlin, which is fine. I got no problem with Damar Hamlin, by the way, for the update. If you have not heard yet, Damar Hamlin is awake. Damar Hamlin has been under sedation since the Monday Night Football game, but he is awake, and according to the most recent update, has been able to grab and grasp and grip hands with family members in his hotel room. The Bills put out a statement that said, quote, while still critically ill, he has demonstrated that he appears to be neurologically intact. His lungs continue to heal, and he is making steady progress, which is great news. Great news. And that it's fair. If you want to know what's up with Damar Hamlin, you just turn on a TV. Everybody's talking about it, which, cool, good. I'm good with that. There's a place to talk about Damar. There's a place to talk about the future of the NFL because of Damar, et cetera, et cetera. It makes sense that he's top. But how many of y'all have turned? Hey, Lonzo, I literally said 3 minutes ago what happened with Duke last night. Who'd Duke play last night?
I don't know, but they missed a bunch of shots at the beginning.
Correct.
But again, you're asking someone who doesn't have a great interest in college basketball a question about something that you talked about college basketball.
I get it. But the point is, Duke, arguably, love him or hate him, the most notorious of all college basketball franchises. Duke had a milestone game last night. So did Clemson, by the way. We'll talk about that in a second.
He misspoke. He meant hospital room. You said hotel room.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry. I'm an idiot.
Just helping you.
I'm an idiot. Duke basketball, the most notorious of college basketball programs, had an absolute collapse last night, got beat by NC State, worst loss to the Wolfpack in the history of Duke basketball, and it got outpaced by Barcelona football, and it got outpaced not just by EPL, but Crystal Palace v. Tottenham, which is like a B-level game in the Premier League. It's a good one, but B-level. Both of those outpaced Duke yesterday. Now, your other argument's going to be that the Duke game happened at night. Those two games happened in the middle of the day, so they had about 4, maybe 5 extra hours to be searched. And that's fair. But Duke basketball was searched roughly a quarter of the amount that Crystal Palace v. Tottenham was searched.
You know, I appreciate your love of soccer and how you push it, but it seems like all the people who love soccer have to push it. And why do you have to push it?
Push it good.
Yes. Now that's going to be in my head, which is much better than any of that country crap you were doing earlier. How many years have you been pushing soccer and it still hasn't risen to the level that and what level do you want soccer to be? I'm just curious.
Baseball. Now, what do I want it to be? Irrelevant. Doesn't matter. I'd love it to be as big as baseball. I think it deserves
No, you should have said that differently. What do I want it to be? Irrelevant.
It is irrelevant what level I want it to be. The question is, what level is it at? I will tell you this, as I've said a number of times, there have been plenty of times that I've gone downtown, over to Hall of Fame, different bars and drinking establishments, and I have started to see a trend where, and especially after the World Cup, as a matter of fact, 2 days ago, I went somewhere with the lady friend, and I saw three different Lionel Messi jerseys by people who, at least superficially, didn't appear to be Argentinian, right? We're an Argentinian, but we're rocking the Messi jerseys around downtown Greenville.
Well, that's kind of you can look at someone.
That's why I said superficially.
Okay.
Superficially.
All right.
Superficially and on the surface, they may very well have all been Argentinian, but superficially, they did not look Argentinian, and they weren't. They were speaking Southern accent English or close to it. So, an assumption, maybe an unfair one, but I don't think they were.
Can you be Argentinian with a Southern accent?
Be anything you want with anything you want.
Okay. I hope that soccer someday reaches the level of baseball for your sake in my lifetime. That would be awesome. I'm on the downside of my life, obviously. So I only have a few years, like 50 years left because I'm going to live to be 108. But I would like to see that happen for you and for people who have really been wanting it to reach that level. But if soccer reaches the level of baseball, is it because soccer has reached the level of baseball or because baseball has declined to the point that soccer has overtaken it in the United States?
The first one. It's because soccer's grown, not the other way around. Because I can see soccer growing, right? Again, Rafi Devers signed his contract yesterday. The biggest remaining free agent off the market. Doesn't even appear in the top 16 searches. Soccer, on the other hand, has 3 of the top 10, and 2 of those come before the first American sports Google trend. I think there's something to be said for that. Second soccer story, and I'm going to blow through this one real quick because I think it's interesting and dumb. 2 days ago, U.S. Soccer Federation said that they were going to be opening up an investigation into allegations of domestic abuse by U.S. Soccer head coach Greg Berhalter. And everybody went, whoa, that's kind of big. Turns out there's a couple of angles to that. First and foremost, the accusation is about 30 years old. It stems back to around 1991, 1992. Greg Berhalter and his current wife, but then girlfriend, had an altercation outside of a eating establishment. In the altercation, became physical. Greg Berhalter kicked his then girlfriend in the leg before leaving. They broke up, obviously. He told his family, she told hers. All of that has been confirmed multiple times. They got back together a couple of years later. Greg said in his response to this claim that he immediately entered himself into therapy. He went public with what happened so that it was known. He didn't want to hide it. They, now 30 years later, have been married for 25 years. She has very clearly forgiven him and publicly forgiven him for what happened. He has accepted responsibility, gone to therapy, cleaned himself up, and has had 0 other incidents in his life since then. Is what happened acceptable? No, it's not. But it's 30 years ago. His wife has forgiven him. He has done the therapy, proven it, and he's had 0 other incidents since then. That's not what's interesting about this story. What's interesting about this story is where these allegations came from, right? I guess not allegations. Greg Berhalter said, yeah, it happened. So where the story came from. Why did this just pop up on the radar? Remember during the World Cup when Rod Brown was saying, I want more Gio Reyna? Remember when Rob Brown kept saying, I want to see Gio starting. I want to see Gio getting more time than he is. Gio's not featured enough in this offense. And I put it on Greg. Well, apparently this story came out during the World Cup. And it came out during the World Cup because Gio Reyna's parents took the story and went to the U.S. Soccer Federation with it. Gio Reyna's parents were unhappy with Gio's treatment of the World Cup team, and Gio Reyna's parents brought it to the U.S. Soccer Federation's attention that Greg Berhalter had an incident 30 years ago with his now wife of 20-plus years who has forgiven him in order to try to force him out. If y'all have ever heard a more country club helicopter parent story in your life that didn't involve someone with a single-digit age, I want to know what it is, because this is ridiculous. Here's the even wilder part about this story. Gio Reyna's dad and Greg Berhalter have been friends, Lonzo, since they played high school soccer together. Like 40-plus years they have been friends. Now Gio's parents decide to try to blackmail Berhalter or expose Berhalter or whatever. By the way, I'm not a Berhalter fan. I'm not defending him because I want him to stay around. I don't want him to stay around. But this ain't the way it should go down. First off, that's some backstab right there. That's pretty nasty, right? Second off, 30-year-old claim of an incident that happened once. Nothing else even close has happened since then. Greg admitted it publicly, got his therapy without being pushed or prodded into it, and his wife forgave him, and now they've been married happily for 20-plus years. Maybe not the hill, right? Maybe not the hill. I'm very simply going to say that Gio Reyna's parents, they better hope that his one-time transfer will allow him to go play for whatever other nationality he might be eligible for. Because you just tanked what I think should have been a remarkable career with U.S. Soccer. Yes, a very disappointing World Cup for Gio Reyna. A very disappointing World Cup finish for the Americans. Gio Reyna could, should, would be a featured star when we host this event in 2026. You have just tanked his career. Because even if the players look around and go, you're a kid, your parents acted like lunatics, but we're still cool with you in the locker room, Greg Berhalter's going to be the coach in 2026. Unless something goes wrong and he wants out, he will be the manager in 2026. You think Gio Reyna is going to get more PT with mom and dad trying to drum up old stories from 30 years ago and throwing away 40 years of friendship to do it because they were unhappy with a coach's decision? That'll go well. That'll go great, Claudio. All right, let's take a break. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Thursday. You know what that means. When we come back, it is time for Fight Club with Lonzo, a segment we haven't done in 3 weeks. So there is plenty to catch up on as we are on the road to the Royal Rumble. We talk some wrestling when we come back on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
Burn the Roy, there's pizza in the kitchen. Why? Why?
It doesn't matter for you. You want me, or you don't want me to put on weight. But I'm now 3 pounds.
Why would I not want you to put on weight?
You want me to start at the lowest possible weight on something?
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
Friday, sunny skies, high 54. And Saturday, we have blue skies and sun with a high 56.
Welcome into the Fight Club, where we waited as long as we possibly could for, somebody else to get back in the room.
My picture was on the big TV. I had to get a picture of it.
Okay.
I saw it. And I'm like, wait, that's me holding a trophy. I'm a legend in my own mind. Lonzo.
Welcome to the Fight Club, where narcissism does not exist.
Look at that.
Yeah. I've seen that picture a bunch of. I'm in that too. So I mean,
You're not in this. Oh, you are in that one. Look at you. You're hiding in the back, just like Lonzo. Inconspicuous as always.
I'm not hiding in the back. I'm back there holding up trophies, baby.
Sure.
Anyway, because that's what we do, without a doubt. Now, something else we do. Normally, we start off with, we build up to news, but I think I'm just going to go ahead, since Rob and I have been contentious all day. Let us just start out with something that Rob will absolutely hate, but it's breaking news in the world of the fight game. Jake Paul.
I knew it. I knew you would.
Jake Paul has just signed a deal with PFL, the Pro Fighting League, which means he's going to be doing some MMA. He also has put out an offer to Nate Diaz for 2 fights. 1 boxing and 1 MMA. And for everyone who's wanted to see, including Rob, I'm sure, Jake Paul being an MMA fight where he could really get crushed, this is a pretty big deal. So I'm not going to ask if you're going to buy it, but would you watch Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz?
Honestly, I probably would. I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't pay for it. But if it was available where I didn't have to give him a dime, I would absolutely watch it. If I can read the contract first. Because if that dumbass no knockout clause is true and in there, and as of right now, I elect to believe it, even though I don't have a reason to, other than the fact that Floyd Mayweather actively held him up so that he didn't hit the floor. If I could read the contract and there is no knockout clause and it's going to be a genuine fight, then yeah, I'd probably watch it.
All right, so
I would watch it the way that NASCAR fans watch cars hit the wall.
If indeed that knockout rule exists, what kind of rule would exist in the MMA fight? I mean, still no knockout? Would he be able to get tapped out though?
I don't know.
Because I think you got a better shot of accidentally getting knocked out in an MMA fight than you do in a boxing fight. Because you can use more appendages.
Yeah, I wonder if there would be like a no submitting rule, right? Like if you get me in an armbar, it's going to work and I'm going to tap. Let me get out of it. I don't know. The point is, these things don't seem to be set up because Jake Paul actually wants to be a top tier boxer or actually wants to be a top tier MMAer. They seem set up because Jake Paul wants to make as much money as possible. And don't get me wrong, I'm for it. But if they are for entertainment purposes, I think there is some level of obligation to acknowledge that, right? Like, hey, I'm doing that's why they're called exhibition fights. I'm doing an exhibition fight, no knockout clause entitled or entailed. But if you are going to put on fights and act as if they are legitimate, I'm trying to become a contender fights, then I fight.
Well, he ruined his chance of ever being in professional wrestling with his showing with his brother, when he come out to save his brother and he was like punching at people's waists. I mean, it was a pretty bad showing. I want to see him versus Nate Diaz, because here's the thing. Diaz don't care if he signed a contract to not knock somebody out. He's going to go in and knock somebody out if he can. And if he gets sued, that dude don't care. He's going to be stoned out of his mind. He's going to go in and he's going to do whatever he can to win. And I think if you've ever wanted to see Jake Paul in a real fight, it will be against Nate Diaz.
I just want to see a contract made. I just want to see a contract made and then one boxer go rebel on Jake Paul.
That's what I'm saying. And if anyone's going to do that,
it's
going to be Nate Diaz, because he's going to get in there and forget what he signed. He absolutely will.
Not care.
Yeah, one or the other. He's going to get in there and he's just going to be him. And you don't want him to be him.
Correct. Let's be real about this. You're going to get more YouTube video views from putting Jake Paul to sleep than you will by having a exhibition that goes the distance and somebody wins by one.
Agreed. You get more even if you get him to tap out. What you want to do is you want to knock him out. Let's go to wrestling, shall we? Speaking of getting knocked out, Charlotte comes back, challenges Ronda Rousey, and wins the title. Are you okay with that? Her being off an injury all this time, the WWE has spent this time building up Ronda Rousey as a heel, and Charlotte comes back and just takes the belt.
Yes, and here's why. Nothing to do with Charlotte. Everything to do with the longer we go, the more we realize that Ronda just ain't it. And that's not a shot at Ronda Rousey, but the reality is not everybody is good at whatever they set their mind to. I wanted really bad to be an NBA player. You know what stopped me from doing it? I suck at basketball, right? First guy in the gym, last guy out of it, outworked everybody on the team every practice. I just wasn't good at it. That's just how it goes. Ronda came in off of relevance from MMA of being the baddest woman on the planet, but she's boring on a mic. They paired her with Shayna thinking, okay, Shayna will help put her over. Didn't do that at all because Shayna is basically the underling and there's no threat there. Charlotte Flair, whether you think she's boring or it's not boring, but overexposed or whatever, is better on a mic than Ronda Rousey. She's a better wrestler than Ronda Rousey. They needed to reinvigorate that title because on Ronda's shoulder, it just got stale.
So who's better than Charlotte Flair?
Who is better? I would say more importantly, who can you put in that realm and hold their own? Becky, Bayley, Sasha, if she comes back.
So the 4 horsewomen.
Effectively.
Yeah.
Effectively. I will say this. I thought WWE did a phenomenal job during the women's revolution, dropping the diva tags, stopping every feud was either about you're crazy or you stole my boyfriend, right? Every feud was based on that for a number, or I'm hotter than you. It's okay to have a little bit of that in there, but it can't be the only thing. But after the women's revolution, when they elevated the 4 horsewomen and they took the women's division to new heights, outside of a couple of other players, they keep missing, right? Nia Jax could have been it, but they missed. She just wasn't good and kept hurting people. Mandy Rose on the main roster didn't work, except in the angle with Otis, which was amazing, and I'll never forgive them for letting that go. But then you sent Mandy down to NXT to kind of rework the character. By the way, the women's division in NXT is solid right now, right? It's very good at the top.
Definitely.
Very good at the top. I think you are still working through the end of Vince's women's division, and I'm hoping that Triple H rumps them out. I think Damage Control has been exactly what you wanted it to be. I think the switch from Big Time Bex back to the man with a little bit of Big Time Bex influence has been an upgrade there. If Sasha Banks comes back, which maybe not, that would be an influx. The problem is you put Ronda over based on her celebrity. And this is a mistake that gets made not often, but when it does, it's bad. When you put somebody over just based on their celebrity without making sure they can, be a professional wrestler, you end up with a, especially at the championship level, you end up with a staleness that impacts everybody on the roster. And I think we were feeling that with Ronda Rousey.
Well, as good as WWE's women's wrestlers have been, the problem is that Charlotte is kind of on her own. So there's only a couple people, as you pointed out, that makes sense to put in the ring with her. So I think that's one of the reasons why people think she's boring, because most wrestlers can't contend with her. James on the stream says Bianca has the level of athleticism, but I don't know. It's just, and it's not about Charlotte's last name. I mean, that helped her when she first got there, but she's proven herself over and over again. It's about how good of a wrestler she is, how good she is on the mic, just the overall package.
No, I don't disagree with you. And listen, the term Nepo baby has taken over social media for a hot minute. That is to say,
I've never heard of that before till now.
Nepo,
so I get it.
Nepo baby is taken over. Specifically, somebody made a point about how the longer you look at Hollywood, the more you're starting to see kids of stars become their own movie stars. And then they're like, no, I did this myself. And it's like, if your mom wasn't Meryl Streep, would you really have been here? But you also have to look at that from the angle of, if you're the kid of a Hollywood actress or actor, you probably spent your life growing up around Hollywood actors and actresses. So, of course, not only were you already in line in that division, but you've probably been around it and picked up stuff that a guy like me would not. Well, if you come from the lineage of arguably the most famous wrestler of all time, not only were you around it, but you probably learned some stuff from him in the process. I appreciate the hell out of people like Bianca, and I think Bianca's phenomenal. I think she's got a great look. She's good on the mic. She puts on good matches. When she's got somebody she can work with, that Bianca v. Alexa Bliss match was a dump, which is too bad because the story's good. The match was terrible. But at the same time, there's a reason Charlotte Flair is Charlotte Flair, and there's a reason Ronda Rousey is not Charlotte Flair. She brought down the whole division. So to elevate Charlotte back up and let her be, it looks like they're going to have her do a babyface run, which I don't love because Charlotte the heel is infinitely better than Charlotte the face. But, I think you needed a bump back up in that division to bring it back to where it was 3 or 4 years ago. And Charlotte Flair is the woman to do it right now.
She's got to go babyface because Ronda Rousey isn't going to go away. And they're starting to build. Hopefully they put a few more women with Ronda Rousey so we can finally see maybe the 4 horsewomen of wrestling against the 4 horsewomen of MMA, which was, during NXT days with Shayna Baszler down there and Marina Shafir and there was somebody else. I forget who the other person was, along with Rousey. That was kind of heading that direction. It never happened. I always wanted to see that. You mentioned Alexa. You and I had a conversation off the air, and I thought it was a pretty cool conversation about what if all of this with the Bray Wyatt thing is just a mind game that Alexa's playing, that she's not influenced by any of that. She's just using it to get back to the top.
Listen, that was Rob Brown fantasy booking is what that was. Cause hey, that's what wrestling fans do. I think it'd be a fun way to do it. I'm just going to say the Alexa that we had in the Bianca stable against Damage Control was the weakest of the Alexa Bliss characters. She works exceptionally well as either the lost soul Bray disciple or the goddess, right? Go back to the goddess gimmick. One of those two is what's been best so far. The problem with that is, the more that I thought about it after we talked about it, is Bray's not doing that. Bray's not going to go through everything he went through with the end of Vince, being brought back, being pumped back up as whatever this character is going to turn out to be, because Bray's a slow burn kind of guy, to then turn around and be, oh yeah, I'm the second guy in a stable led by Alexa Bliss. So that'd be a dope. I think.
And by the way, the part that I'm talking about is that she's not affiliated with it at all. It's not that she's over Bray Wyatt. That she's just using it
as a reason to beat the hell out of Bianca.
As a reason to do that. And
fine. I'd love that.
I think that would be a good angle, because she keeps saying, I'm not affected by things. And what if she's not? What if she planted all that? And again, it's fantasy booking, but what if she planted all that just so she could get back to the top?
I don't know, but I will tell you the favorite part of that entire match was when the first guy in the mask was ringside and the security guard tried to make him move. He's like, you got to back up. And you can see the guy lean over and be like, I'm part of the gimmick. And the security guard jumps out of the way, and not like wrestlers, like a 70-year-old man working ringside security. Favorite part of the match, that and both Cena and the referee very clearly and loudly yelling directions at KO and Roman during the middle of the match. There have been a couple of small production issues for WWE. Nothing that's it's just funny to me. It's not like, the product stinks.
It was, there have been I think it's Botchamania or something like that points out all those kind of stuffs online, but it was pretty obvious. It was really loud. I think they had a mic turned on that shouldn't have been turned on. We know they do that, but actually hearing it does take away from it. And I don't know that it was necessary. So you don't time the tag at the same time. Who cares? Really, it looks cool, but we've seen it 1,000 times. It's not that big of a deal.
I don't even have a problem with timing it at the same time. It's just that I don't need two dudes laying around for 45 seconds in the middle of the ring and then suddenly they both get the turbo boost to get to the corner. Like, I think the only problem I've ever had with tag matches, even though I am 1-0 in one in my career.
Not a humble brag, just a brag.
Just a brag. The only problem I have is that in order to make them look that way, there are so many spots where you just have to lay around for no reason. And it bugs me a little bit. The only way it's made worse is when you can hear the referee going, wait, okay, go, very loudly.
Wonder if does that happen on the indies? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you're not filming it,
It's yes and no. It's different for those guys because obviously they're not dealing with 10,000 people in the arena. They're dealing with 100 people. And so the ref in that spot, ordinarily, what you'd see is the ref will go down as if they are checking on the wrestler, and it'll be a much more like, wait, 10 seconds. And then they'll stand back up versus 10,000 people surrounding where you can usually yell and get away with it. But I think your theory was right, and that somebody accidentally left a ring mic potted up on accident, and that's why we heard it. You can all the time see these guys talking to each other.
Yeah.
Most wrestlers have long hair so that they can cover their faces when they talk. I think somebody popped a mic at the wrong time.
Which is why I have long hair, but it's so I can say stuff about people in the hall and they can't tell.
Yeah,
that
like
I'm
you don't
saying
just
it.
tell them to their face.
Yeah. I was going to make fun of the millennial cowboy, but I don't have enough time. And I was going to talk like the millennial cowboy, like I'm reading off a prompter, but I'm not going to do that because we got a little bit of time. I want to talk about one of the best matches I've seen in a long time. And I had a little bit of problem with New Day being down in NXT because I thought it was kind of like a demotion, but I see what they're doing. They are bringing the brand up because they're having phenomenal matches, including the tag team match with Pretty Deadly, which was an amazing match. But Kofi Kingston versus Joe Gacy is one of the best matches I've seen in a couple months. And I knew Joe Gacy had the potential. I like the schism. I like all they're doing with that faction, but Gacy has so much potential because of what he can do on the mic, his look, everything, but his in-ring needed some work until I saw him work with Kofi Kingston. And I think working with Kofi Kingston could make just about anybody look good. But Gacy held his own. And if you haven't watched the match, it was from last week's NXT, you need to check it out. So do you think it's good that Kofi and Xavier are down on NXT?
I think there is nothing wrong with having higher talent come down and coach up via live matches and whatnot, younger talent. NXT has always been good. There have been points that were better than others, but having those two guys down there, not necessarily because, and I think both Xavier and Kofi are more than adequate in the ring. But I think if you were looking for two guys that are going to show you how to use that and get over with the crowd, who better than the New Day, right? I mean, if you ask me like the three most organically over groups or individuals of the past decade, Daniel Bryan's got to be one of them. And New Day's got to be number two, if not number one. I think having those guys down there to take a guy like Gacy and elevate him, not in terms of ring work, which, as you pointed out, we've seen is now good, but how to work a crowd to make how many NXT guys have come up, Zoe, and have not been able to get an initial reaction from the crowd, and then the panic button gets smashed and their gimmick gets changed, and now they're just a nobody, right?
Well, another thing that's starting to happen is NXT is going back on the road outside of Florida, I believe. For a while, they were just doing stuff in Florida around the area, but now they're starting to go other places, including Charlotte. So,
I will, and that is good. I think one of the few things that has kind of been a problem for NXT, though not a big one, is that by always having it in Orlando and always having it in front of the same wrestling dorks that come every single match. And by the way, I don't say that as a derogatory term because I'm also a wrestling dork. You end up stonewalling, right? Like if a guy doesn't get over with that crowd, it's not like he can work on it a week or two, come back later and try again. It's the same folks that are going to hold it. By going on the road, you get exposure to different groups and different regions, different territories, different areas with different cultural receptions, etc. Gives you the opportunity to really have to force yourself to learn how to work all the crowds instead of just the same 50 people every week.
Hopefully they come back to Spartanburg's Memorial Auditorium. That's when I first saw NXT. and it was excellent. It's a smaller venue. It was more intimate, but it was still a bunch of the stars that are out there today. We got to see then.
I would say that I hope it's big enough for the Well. That being said, February 3rd, SmackDown, right here at the Ville. Zoe and I will be there. I assume you will too. America. Take a break, come back, wrap up this show. Rob Lonzo, you. It's the Fan Upstate.
Yeah, Kevin, I see what you're doing here, but the thing is, neither one of us have ever said it was real. So, I mean, if you take away wrestling's not real from some people, they don't have anything else. They don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
They don't know what else to say.
All right, let's see what we got in the comments here. We got, let's go all the way. Oh, I missed a bunch. Let's get up to it. Let's see. Vicky, hey, Vicky, first off, hi, how are you? Good to see you. I also need a t-shirt that says irrelevant on it. Might as well be a name tag that just says irrelevant. Hi, my name is Irrelevant. Let's see. Will says it's all Raina's fault. If this isn't the most U.S. soccer athletics thing, then I don't know what is. Listen, I think every international club has its dumb drama. But I did not have helicopter parent goes full revenge on their friend of 40 years and coach on my bingo card is all I'm saying. That's crazy. Gio's mom was Berhalter's wife's college roommate and teammate too. Yeah, and the dad was a high school teammate, if I read correctly. So that makes it like if they had no connection at all, at least I could just write it up to be like, hey, helicopter parents come in all shapes and forms. But for them to throw away 4 decades of friendship because their baby boy didn't get the PT they wanted is insane to me.
Maybe there were promises made behind the scenes that were not fulfilled.
Even still,
I mean,
gotta know.
When you're buddies with someone, yeah, you're gonna play oh yeah, we're gonna play him, and then they didn't.
It actually said the whole ordeal is why we need to go. Joe says the whole ordeal is why we need to go outside of the USMNT establishment for a manager. Too much drama with Berhalter constantly feuding with players. Dude isn't a good enough manager to justify the drama. I could not disagree with that. Could not disagree. It's just, it's getting to be too much. And when you are going into a World Cup feuding with your most creative offensive player and not giving a PT, it's just not a good look. Not a good look. Joe says Rousey as champion has been one of the worst things in WWE this year. She's not improved one iota since day one. I think that's my biggest problem, right? Like, I had a lot of respect for a guy that I was just trashing, Jake Paul, because that dude showed up and busted his ass to put on a great show, and I thought he did.
Logan Paul,
sorry. I thought
Jake Paul looked horrible.
I can't stand either one of them. Jake Paul's match with Roman, I ended it, and I came in the next day, and what did I tell you?
Logan Paul.
I came in the next day.
You can't tell them apart. There's a difference.
I came in the next day and I told Zoe, I'm like, I hate to admit how much I enjoyed that match. I hate to admit how good it was. Stephen Amell did the same thing. He came in, put on a hell of a celebrity. David Arquette came in when he was the champ, a celebrity champ, and busted his butt to get into the business and get better. I think Ronda just thought she was going to be able to coast forever on I'm Ronda Rousey. But how long ago was it when she lost to Holly Holm and the MMA career fell apart? A decade?
Has it really been that long?
Let's see.
It's been a while. But
Rousey loses to Holly Holm. 7 years.
So nearly
7 years. And she's still coasting on Ronda Rousey from UFC. And it ain't anymore. If you're going to be champ, you have to be a wrestler. I don't care what level celebrity you are. Trey said Asuka is my favorite in WWE. Asuka ditching the makeup and going with the cryptic tweets. I really hope she shows up as that crazy Japanese heel that she used to be. 100%. James says Botchamania. I love Botchamania. I watch Botchamania all the time. I'm a huge fan of Botchamania and still a wrestling fan. You can love something, but also laugh at when it gets it wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. Y'all are turning Diesel on by admitting the fakeness of wrestling. Lonzo and I have never said it's not fake. We know it's scripted. You know what else is scripted? Everything you watch on television.
Movies, TV.
It's all
Yes.
scripted.
Yeah, it's scripted.
The "It's Still Real to Me, Damn It" speech was in Spartanburg. You are correct. It was in Spartanburg, and I cannot tell you how many times I have quoted that line. Like a million. It's still real to me, damn it.
The guys down the hall know that guy, if I
I have no
understand
doubt.
correctly. So
Wrestling is real to me in that I get real entertainment out of it. I connect to some of the stories, etc. And it's just for fun, guys. It's just for fun. Let's have fun. We're all about having fun here on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate.
all right, time for Twitter trending topics, where I tell Rob what is trending and he tells us why. But before I get to that, make sure you tune in on the stream, because we have conversations during the breaks and talk about things that Rob says we don't talk about on the air, but we do. I mean, there's hardly anything we talk about on stream that we don't talk about on the air, but we can actually expound and get a little more personal one-on-one with the people who are actually commenting, which we get a bunch every day, and we need you to do the same. So jump on Twitch, jump on Twitter, jump on YouTube, jump on Facebook, because we're there every single day, except when we get it in Facebook jail, thanks to Rob playing a soccer cut.
You could have stopped it at any time.
Yeah, well, I just gotta, you got me in Facebook jail. All right, Robert Duvall. I felt nervous because I'm going to feel the backlash of Rob after the show for Robert Duvall is trending.
I have no idea. Right? Is it? He's either dead or it's his birthday.
It's 50-50,
Yeah.
but he's still with us.
It's his birthday.
Yes.
Yeah, there
How
you
old
go.
do you think he is? I don't think you're a Duvall
Ooh.
fan by the way you're acting. I mean, come
Ooh.
on, he's been in a lot of stuff.
Robert Duvall is 82.
Without him, you don't get Rubbin' is Racing.
Rubbin's racing.
He is 92.
Oh man,
Yes.
still kicking.
Are,
I wish I was rich, because rich people get to look good longer and die older.
doesn't it seem like that?
It
For
doesn't
sure.
seem like it. It is.
Well, that's because they have more money to pay for better healthcare and other
Correct.
things. The next thing is trending is Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill, no idea why he's trending this time. Obviously, there's been a lot of Henry Cavill news. I did see yesterday that there was an article going around that claimed that James Gunn is not rebooting the entire DC universe, and that led to some speculation that maybe there's still room for Henry Cavill to come back in future projects. Then I read the article because I was curious. And this is why I hate clickbait journalism, Lonzo. The article was entitled, "James Gunn will not reboot entire DCU." And I read the article. And then in there is James Gunn saying, "We are rebooting the DCU." And the article was that Margot Robbie will still be on as Harley Quinn. That was literally it.
All right. The main reason why Henry Cavill is trending is because there are rumors out there that Ezra Miller is going to stay on as the Flash despite all the controversy after the Flash movie. And people are mad that they're getting rid of Henry Cavill as Superman, but they're keeping Ezra Miller despite all of his stuff that he got arrested for. I mean, which was a lot of stuff. So that's why it's trending. All right. Time for one more. Danhausen is trending.
Danhausen earlier this week, it was announced, was the #1 merch seller in AEW. Very nice, very evil, very profitable is Danhausen, which is why I think also in the last week and a half, you have seen him start to creep back into different shots and pictures and whatnot. If you don't like Danhausen, we're not friends.
All right.
That's amazing.
He's trending because he wore a muumuu.
Sure.
Have you seen? He's
no,
ringside wearing a muumuu. It's and a big old. They say fat man's hat, which I don't know what that
The
means.
big hat?
Yeah.
The big hats are taking over.
Are they?
Yeah, the big hats are taking over. They got really popular. I can't remember which
It
one.
would just look like a beanie on me. So I
it-
mean,
It got really popular. It got really popular because of one NFL player, and then they've just kind of like taken over, and now everybody's wearing them. I frankly think they're incredible. Anyway, I just saw the picture. That's amazing. Danhausen's the best. You know what? Sometimes, how many times have I said, Alonzo, sometimes wrestling can just be fun. You can just have fun with it. Ladies and gentlemen, Thursday show is in the books. When we come back tomorrow, we break down the weekend in college football. Man.
Looks like we're going to have to talk NFL. Wonder what that other show is going to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, he is Lonzo. He's an NFL guy. I am Rob Brown. I am an NFL guy, and we will talk that and probably more stuff tomorrow on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Later, brother. That is because, James, it was one of the greatest moments in wrestling history. And then going back down to eat the potato chips that Hook left behind was spectacular.
Still heartbroken that they broke that those guys
Hookhausen
didn't
should have
stay.
been the greatest
Yes.
tag team that ever existed. It really should have.
What could have been? I mean, it's okay him being with Jungle Boy, but Danhausen and Hooks should still be together.
Danhausen and Orange Cassidy has the potential for greatness as well. Ladies and gentlemen, you're all amazing human beings, and we appreciate you watching, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Goodbye.